Thank you, everybody, for attending tonight's zoning hearing board meeting of Plymouth Township. It's a Zoom meeting. If anybody needs to log on, you have to reach out to our people to get on, but it looks like everybody's good. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Brandon, could you does it play? No. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of
And
America,
America,
to the republic
To the republic,
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
liberty and
justice for
justice
all.
for all. Thank you. All right, we're going to start the meeting with a couple of extensions here.
Mr. Chairman, I think the first thing we want to do is announce if anybody is on the Zoom tonight, on this, at this meeting, attending this meeting, if they're interested in the application for 502 Germantown Pike, which was the application of KPG 3, or the application of Fingers, Wings, and Other Things for 107 Ridge Pike. Neither of those applications will be heard tonight. Those applications are going to be re-advertised completely and will be held at a future date subject to re-advertisement. So keep your eyes and ears open for future zoning hearing board agendas for those two items, but neither of them will be heard tonight. There is also now, Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, a request for a one-year extension by the St. George's Coptic Orthodox Church of Greater Philadelphia. Mr. Ed Hughes submitted a letter dated July 12th, 2021, requesting that one-year extension based on the fact that the church, due to COVID, has had difficulty in its fundraising efforts, money that it needs to help build that church, so that they're asking for a one-year extension of the variance that they previously received. If the board is of a mind, it would require a motion to approve the request of St. George's Coptic Orthodox Church of Greater Philadelphia for a one-year extension to allow it to continue fundraising and allow the variance request that was granted previously to continue for an additional 1 year.
Mr. Stander, if I can just correct, I don't like correcting you,
No,
but
by all means, I'm wide open to
the
correcting.
letter wasn't
seriously.
from Ed Hughes, it was from George Azarowski.
From Ed's firm. You're correct.
Yes.
Right. I just saw the letterhead and, you know.
Gotcha.
Hey, Mr. Standards, you stand corrected. Does anybody have a motion to extend for a year our zoning approval, our zoning variance approval?
I'll make a motion to extend the variance approval for St. George Coptic Orthodox Church, 2907 Jolly Road for a year.
Second?
I second.
Thank you. Roll call. Amy?
In favor.
Denise, in favor.
Thank you. Brian?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. We only have 4 tonight, correct, Dave?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, that motion
This is-
passes, so that extension will be granted, and Dave will write them a letter advising them accordingly. And I think we are ready to move on to our agenda this evening. But
Okay, so for clarification, we don't have to vote on 502 West, we don't have to extend the first
Correct.
2.
Correct,
Anybody's online, they're not going to be heard tonight, correct?
correct.
Okay, so does that bring us to, which one?
Well, it brings us to 601 Germantown Pike.
West Germantown Pike and Hickory Road LLC, Plymouth Meeting PA LLC.
Yep.
Is that their legal name? Okay,
Yes.
on that,
Yes,
on an
that is
application
their-
for I'm sorry,
I'm sorry,
ahead.
Julie Von Spreckleson on behalf of the applicant. Yes, that is their legal name. That's the
Okay.
owner.
So on application for appeal from the determination of the Plymouth Town zoning officer that a variance modification of a prior zoning decision is required, or an alternative seeks a modification of the prior site plan and zoning hearing board decision dated June 10, 2016, which granted a variance to allow 39 parking spaces. Or in the alternative, seek an interpretation or variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended, Article 28, Section 2804A, and Article 19, Section 1909. The variance request is as follows: to allow 36 parking spaces where a minimum of 39 are required, and to allow an 8-foot high fence where a maximum of 6 foot is allowed. The property is located on 601 West Germantown Pike in limited commercial zoning district. Okay, so I'm sorry, Julie,
Yes.
you're on.
Good evening, Julie Bonds Freckleson. Before I begin, it's my understanding that one of my witnesses is trying to get into the meeting, and he's still in the lobby. His name is Adam Cole.
He's in the lobby of the Plymouth
Yeah.
Township building.
Yes.
I don't think you have access to it. I think Plymouth Township building's closed. Can he call in?
No, no, no. Oh, no. I'm sorry. He's in the waiting room. He's in the waiting room online.
Oh, on the Zoom waiting room.
Yeah.
See if he can, this is Brandon in IT. Can you see if he can reconnect? Because I don't have anyone in the waiting room right now.
Okay.
Please.
Or he
thank
can
you.
call in, he said.
He can do that too.
But not to hold up the matter, hopefully he'll be able to log in or call in, but I'll get started. Just to give a little bit of background, again, Julie Bonds Freckleson from the law firm of Eastburn and Gray on behalf of the applicant Plymouth Meeting PA NWC Germantown Pike and Hickory LLC, which is also the legal owner of the property located at 601 West Germantown Pike Limited Commercial District zoning. And the property is approximately 0.712 in acres. Existing conditions at this site and existing improvements include a 4,500 square foot building, 39 parking spaces, and associated lighting, landscaping, and stormwater management improvements. What applicant is proposing is the occupancy of the 4,500 square foot building for one retail tenant, PharmaCann, a medical cannabis dispensary serving only Pennsylvania certified medical patients. And pursuant to state statute, the use requires a secure gated unloading area and security fence to screen from public sight the unloading of the product from the transport vehicle into the dispensary. Applicant proposes to locate the secured gated unloading area in the area directly behind the building where 3 parking spaces currently exist. That will reduce the number of parking spaces on the site from 39 to 36 spaces. However, and this is important, 39 parking spaces are not required for this use. Only 20 parking spaces are required for this use based on the store sales floor space provided. Additionally, a portion of the security fence located internal to the site, not on the property line, but actually internal to the site, is proposed to be 8 feet in height rather than the maximum permitted height of 6 feet. And that's due to the sloped grading of the property and also the state requirement, again, that the product be transported out of public sight. So the zoning relief, as the chair indicated, there's a lot in the alternative with regard to parking because it's the applicant, it's our position that there is no parking variance required because we're providing in excess of the required parking. So again, only 20 parking spaces are required and we're providing 36 spaces. Currently, there exists 39 spaces and 3 of those spaces will have that enclosed gated loading area now. So that's why we have requested an alternative, either an appeal of the zoning officer's determination or an interpretation of the parking requirements, or in the alternative, a modification of a prior approval which the prior approval required 39 spaces for a different use, and or a variance to permit the 36 parking spaces on the site. So that's one form of relief. The only other form of relief we're requesting is from section 1909A, and that's to permit only a portion of the internal site fence to be 8 feet in height rather than the maximum permitted 6 feet in height. I did take the liberty of emailing an exhibit booklet to the zoning officer and your solicitor, and hopefully he's provided it to everybody. I'll just run through the tabs very briefly. The first tab is the deed to the property. The second tab is an aerial photograph of existing property conditions. The third tab is a site plan prepared by Ryton Architects LLC dated August 30th, 2017. And that was for the prior approval, and they shows the existing conditions. Tab 4 is the first floor life safety plan prepared by Interform Architects and Design dated April 21st, 2021. Tab 5 is a site plan prepared by Interform Architects and Design dated April 21st, 2021, and that was last revised June 18th, 2021. And tab 6 is a security fence detail plan and exterior elevations prepared by Interform Architects and Design dated April 21st, 2021, last revised June 18th, 2021. I also want to mention that the planning agency did review and recommend approval of the application. They had one recommended condition, and that was that the loading area be equipped with a Knox box for emergency access by the fire department, which recommended condition of approval applicant is agreeable to provide. So with that, I have 2 witnesses this evening. Because it's a pretty straightforward application, if the zoning hearing board is amenable, I'd like to provide that testimony via an offer of proof rather than the question answer format.
Chairman, I believe that that's been acceptable in the past.
Okay, continue.
Thank you. The first witness is Alex Milanowski. If he could be sworn, please.
State your full name, sir, for the record.
Alex Milanowski,
Spell your last name, please.
Milanoski.
Please raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. If Mr. Milanowski were to testify, he would state that he is a project manager for Insight Real Estate and has been employed in that capacity since 2018. He would testify that his main duties include working with municipalities to acquire entitlements, permits, and approvals for commercial real estate owned and developed by Insight, and that he also coordinates with potential tenants for commercial projects. Mr. Milanowski would testify that the applicant, Plymouth Meeting PA, NWC, Germantown Pike and Hickory LLC, is the entity that was formed by Insight to purchase the property at 601 West Germantown Pike, and that he is familiar with the property and the history of the development of the property, which he would summarize as follows. The property subject of the application was part of a 2-lot subdivision of the 615 Germantown Pike parcel. In 2016, Insight received zoning and subdivision and land development approvals to develop the properties. The 615 West Germantown Pike parcel was developed with a retail building containing 2 businesses, a VisionWorks Eye Care Center, and a Mission Barbecue restaurant. The 601 West Germantown Pike parcel, which is the subject of this application, was approved for a 4,500 square foot building with 39 parking spaces. At the time of the zoning hearing in 2016, Insight had not yet secured a tenant for the 4,500 square foot retail building. So Insight conservatively calculated the required number of parking spaces, assuming that the entire 4,500 square feet would be dedicated to store sales floor space. The zoning ordinance requires 1 parking space for every 100 square feet of store sales floor space. Thus, the minimum number of parking spaces that could possibly be required would be 45. Knowing that the entire 4,500 square foot building footprint would not be used for store sales floor space and wanting to maintain green area, Insight received zoning approval to permit 39 parking spaces, with the condition of approval being that the building be occupied by one retail tenant. At the time of the approval, Insight believed that a national cell phone retailer would occupy the entire 4,500 square foot building. Thus, Insight was agreeable to that condition of approval. Unfortunately, after obtaining the zoning approval, the tenant indicated they could not use the entire 4,500 square foot space. Insight then diligently sought other retail users to occupy the 4,500 square foot building, but despite best efforts to do so, Insight was unable to secure a tenant to occupy the entire space. Although Insight had not yet found a second tenant for the 4,500 square foot building, T-Mobile was anxious to occupy 1,900 square feet of the building footprint. Thus, Insight returned to the zoning hearing board at the end of 2017, requesting a modification of the 2016 zoning decision to allow two tenants to occupy the 4,500 square foot building, a 1,900 square foot T-Mobile retail use and a 2,600 square foot permitted use yet to be determined. Of the 30 parking spaces, 39 parking spaces, 14 were allocated to T-Mobile and 25 were for the to be determined retail tenant. The zoning relief was granted, land development approval was obtained, and the 4,500 square foot building was constructed with T-Mobile occupying its allocated space, as is shown in the aerial photograph of existing property conditions and the 2017 site plan that are tabs 2 and 3 of the exhibit booklet. Although Insight continued to diligently market the remaining 2,600 square feet of retail space, the pandemic-related shutdown affected commercial leasing negatively. Unfortunately, T-Mobile was also a casualty of the pandemic, leaving the 4,500 square foot building vacant. Mr. Milanowski would further testify that through its continued search, Insight recently secured a lease with one retail tenant to occupy the entire building. The tenant, PharmaCann, is a medical cannabis dispensary serving only Pennsylvania certified medical patients. Mr. Milanowski would testify that the store sales floor space, as shown on the floor plan at tab 4 of the exhibit booklet, is 1,951 square feet, and that based on the applicable zoning ordinance parking provision, only 20 parking spaces are required, even though the property has 39 parking spaces currently. Mr. Milanowski would testify that Insight proposes to enclose 3 existing parking spaces located directly behind the building in order to provide a secure gated loading area required for the use, as is shown on the site plan prepared by Interform Architects and Design at tab 5 of the exhibit booklet. Mr. Milanowski would further testify that even with the enclosure of the 3 parking spaces, the property will have 16 more parking spaces than the number of parking spaces required by the zoning ordinance, and that Insight is actually bringing the number of parking spaces at the property into compliance with and actually exceeds the zoning ordinance parking requirements. Mr. Milanowski would testify that it's Insight's position that no zoning relief is or should be required for parking based on the enclosure of the 3 parking spaces on the property, which is the basis of Insight's appeal of the zoning officer's determination that parking relief is required. Alternatively, Insight requests either a modification of the prior zoning approval or in the alternative, a variance to allow 36 parking spaces, as again, only 20 parking spaces are required by ordinance. Mr. Milanowski would testify that the only other zoning relief Insight is requesting is a variance to allow a portion of a security fence located internal to the site to be 8 feet in height rather than the maximum permitted height of 6 feet due to the sloped grading of the property. Finally, Mr. Milanowski would testify that if the zoning relief is granted, there will be no adverse impact on the community because more than the required number of parking spaces are being provided, and because the portion of the fence proposed to be 8 feet in height is located on a downslope area of the property, which is internal to the site, and it will provide enhanced safety of the site. That the variances requested are the minimum necessary to afford relief and require the least modification possible of the regulations in issue. that would complete my offer of proof for Mr. Milanowski. I would just like to ask him to affirm that testimony. Alex, you've been offer of proof that I presented to the zoning hearing board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you affirm that if you testified, you would have testified consistent with my offer of proof and that you adopt that offer of proof as your own testimony?
I do.
Is there anything in my offer of proof that you would change?
No,
Is there anything you would like to add to the offer of proof?
no.
That's all the testimony I have for this witness.
I think it would be appropriate now for board questions for Mr. Milanowski.
Okay, so Amy, do you want to start out? Do you have any questions here?
I have a question. Are you going to be taking over the full 4,500 square feet? And if
That's
not,
correct.
oh, so you'll be taking over the full space, but only using 1,900 of it?
1,900 square feet is the planned sales floor space, and sales floor space is what dictates the parking requirement in the zoning.
Okay, and then what will the other square footage be used for?
Storage, office, back of house, restrooms, hallway, etc.
And the loading area is behind the building. Does it have an entrance and an exit? Is it a drive-through area, or can you explain how cars would enter?
Sure.
Would you
if
like me
go
to bring up the existing property
That'd be
conditions? That might help
That'd be great.
if I can
So
share
if-
my screen.
Sure,
If
I'm
you look
looking.
at A0.0, the site plan, it shows a retractable 8-foot fence gated area that a delivery van, like a Ford Transit or a Mercedes Sprinter van, size delivery van, could back up and parallel park into when the retractable gate is closed. And if you look at the aerial photograph that was also provided by Julie, you can see the 3 parking spots on the darker portion of the lot at 601 Germantown Pike, directly behind the building. Those are the spots that we're proposing to be temporarily enclosed for this delivery area.
So they'll
it's
just,
not a,
no, go
correct.
ahead.
There's no entry and exit. It's a single entry and exit point, which is why I believe during the advisory committee hearing a couple of weeks ago, they made the suggestion that we should add a Knox box to the gate in the event that there's a fire safety or life safety concern while the delivery van is enclosed within the drop-off area.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Denise,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to know, would the facility be used exclusively for sales? Like, would there be like treatment as well, like on the premises? Or would it be sales that were gonna, you pick up and leave?
Regarding the actual operations of the business, we do have a tenant representative, Adam Cole, on the line as well. I know that there is a pharmacist that is on site during at all times. I don't believe that this is a spot where you could go and have an appointment with a doctor and get your prescription. I believe it is just retail sales, correct?
Okay, so there would be no use of cannabis or anything on the premises? Is that-
No, there's no use of cannabis allowed on the premises. It is retail sales only for medical users.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
okay, thanks Denise. Brian,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we talking about the area at the back of the building where there was currently a cutout for 3 parking spaces and there's a door with a stair leading up to it? Is that the,
That's correct.
okay. Will
That's
that be-
correct.
Will that be reconfigured as a loading dock, or will it stay as is, just have the fence around it?
It's going to stay as is, and in the future, if this tenant decides to reoccupy another space, that fence could be removed, and the 3 parking spots could be reinstated as existing.
Okay, so in a sense, it's a fence that will screen that area, but my understanding is it doesn't surround it completely?
It does surround it completely. So it surrounds that area, and then it also surrounds the walkway to the rear entrance to the building. So
Oh, yeah, yeah.
per PA state law, it's required that the loading area and into the rear storage facility of the building be fully enclosed from public view.
Okay, there's a walkway at the corner of the building, I guess, the one with the concrete pad with the railings that runs parallel to the end of the building.
Mhm.
That's correct. It's on the aerial. If you could see the aerial photograph that I've now
Yeah.
displayed,
Yeah, okay, right.
concrete walk.
Yeah, I'm looking at a photograph I took Saturday, but that meshes.
Okay.
Have there been any other concerns expressed by any of the local businesses or neighbors about this particular reconfiguration?
There are
None.
not.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I have a few questions for you guys. I've heard it just now, and I've read it in the minutes to the planning meeting that the Pennsylvania code, these are Pennsylvania code requirements. Can you elaborate and give me some detail on what the requirements are?
The requirements are to provide a fully enclosed area where product can be unloaded and transported into the site. And it is to be out of public sight. And state license requires it, and the inspectors are very diligent in enforcing that provision.
The provision doesn't say 8 feet.
It
correct?
doesn't say 8 feet, it says fully enclosed. And because of the slope of the property, and I'm just going to have the next witness speak to it, but there's a slope, as you can see. If you can see on the aerial photograph, there's quite a slope. There's a grade difference of about 2 feet
Which
right in
tab
that
are you
ramp
talking about?
area.
Which tab?
I'm sorry?
Which tab? The aerial.
The aerial photograph is tab 2 of the exhibit booklet, and I have it displayed on my shared screen right now, if you could see it. But you can see the concrete walkway from the 3 parking spaces in the rear. And
Right.
there's a grade differential of about 2 feet. The lowest part of the grade is down here by the loading area. And then as you get closer to Germantown Pike, the grade raises about 2 feet. So actually the 8-foot part of the fence, they want it located at the lowest part. So as you move up, the fence becomes 6 feet in height. It's down low where it's 8 feet because anybody looking from grade, they don't want it to be available for public sight.
Okay, so when you say a couple of follow-ups there, so when the grade goes from, I can't tell from an aerial that there's a 2-foot knockoff here in the grade. But if you say so, I believe you. Dave, is that accurate? Do we know the topography here? Is that true? That it's a 2 feet drop off from the cement walkway on what we're looking at the right side to the walkway in between the buildings? That's a 2-foot drop off there?
Probably, yeah.
Okay. And then, so at the starting point, call the starting point, the right side of what we're looking at, right? I guess that's the high point of the grade. Is that going to be 8-foot height? And then it drops down to 6 foot as you go down the grade? Is that what's happening here?
No, the high point up here, the fence is proposed 6 feet. And as you go down towards the bottom, it's proposed for 8 feet. And that, the reason for that, it almost seems counterintuitive, and I understand your confusion. It almost seems counterintuitive, but if somebody's standing on grade, they don't want anybody to be able to see in at the low part of the grade of the property. So that's
Sure.
why they're proposing 8 feet down here below. And then as you move up, it's only 6 foot high fence.
The back of the building's lower than the front of the building. Is that right?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay. So it's going to be 8 feet in the back and 6 feet in the front?
Correct.
And then is there going to be you say enclosure, does that mean there's going to be a roof to the fence?
There is no
it
roof
does-
to,
it's,
oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
it's not required that it be fully enclosed.
So it's not going to be like a cage.
Correct.
Correct. Yeah, just
Then you're
that
gonna
it's
have
blocked from public view.
You're going to have a sliding chain link door there in the back to let a truck back into that spot? Is that what's
Correct.
happening?
Yeah, here's the fence detail. I'm displaying that now. And that's tab 6 of the exhibit booklet. It shows what the fence would look like.
Okay. And then, on the specific parking spaces where we're running into this calculation difference here. So Dave, are you counting the whole space as retail?
Correct. When this applicant originally came in, the same applicant back in 2016, they originally counted the entire building retail to stay consistent with prior zoning orders and the record plan. The building is still considered all retail like it was back in 2016. So that's the reasoning for the relief they need now.
Okay, and then this for the client. So you're going to have a partitioned off retail section only, and then you're going to have a private section in the back or in the front. I'm not sure. On the side, I'm not sure the layout here.
So if you review sheet A0.1, which is the floor plan, it shows you the main entry to the building, the store sales floor area, and the differentiation between the rear loading and access security areas and restrooms and the main interface space for retail customers.
Is that what's in blue or what's in red?
I see that the scanned in tabulated version is not the most clear, but the blue that surrounds the left and lower part of the sheet is the 1,900 square foot of sales floor area and customer restrooms and hallway. The red in the back is the private employee and storage area.
So customer restrooms are part of retail, right? And then the back you have office.
Correct.
You have office, and then how much is storage, like warehouse?
These actually might be better questions for the PharmaCann representative. If you don't mind, I'd like him to answer.
Okay.
Adam?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Let's get
Please
Adam sworn
introduce
in.
yourself to the
Thank you.
board.
Yeah, just get sworn in, please.
State your full name for the record, please.
Adam Cole,
Spell your last name.
C-O-L-E.
Thank you, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Can Mr. Cole appear live, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Julie, did you want to take him through his testimony, or did you want that specific question? I think Mr. Aprile was still asking his questions, and this one was determined to be most appropriate for this witness.
It's the board's pleasure.
Would you like this witness to answer just that question? Just that question. Mr. Aprile? Mr. Aprile?
That for me, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I wanted to know if you would like this witness to answer your question.
Sure. And is there another presentation? I think we need another presentation. I just think I'd like to know how much is going to be retail, how much is going to be office, and how much is going to be storage, like warehouse.
I'm happy to answer that question.
Go ahead, Adam.
Is that all right? Okay,
Yep,
thank
go
you.
ahead.
On.
Yes,
Thank
okay,
you,
this is
Adam.
Adam Cole. So I think you're seeing a floor plan route that's shaded in white, blue, pink, and purple. The white area is considered the retail floor. Our primary entrance will be on the left or the south side of the east elevation. And that is our reception and lobby room where patients come in and check in and be certified as patients and have appointments and so forth. If you follow along the side elevation of the building or the left side of this plan, that hallway goes back to 2 public restrooms. Then to the right side or the northeast corner of the building, a patient moves through a set of double doors into the dispensary area, which is the retail sales floor where the point of sales equipment and the transactions occur. This is the area that a patient would collect their product from their order and depart out the building at the north end of the east wall, or the bottom right corner of the drawing. All of the areas in red are back of house areas that include working, processing, storage areas where things are, product is packaged and repackaged or checked and weighed and confirmed. There are IT rooms, there's a small management office, there's a break room, janitor room, 2 small storage rooms that are just for like office supplies and business equipment. The light blue colored room is our secure vault that is a requirement under Pennsylvania code. It's built to the standards of the Department of Health, and is a separate thing. So those are the 3 zones. And then in the very back right and northwest corner of the building is a light purple square, and that is the fire access and roof hatch access room, accessible only from the exterior of the building and is not tied to the interior premises.
So that top right corner, is that the loading dock? Is that where your
No,
people are
sir, the
coming in
loading
with-
dock, yeah, the loading dock is effectively, if you follow from the boxed area at the very top right-hand portion of this drawing and follow the red line along the north side of the building to the midpoint of the building, there's a stairwell, a ramp, there's a sidewalk ramp going that entire distance. It plateaus on a landing and then enters in from that north side, just roughly in the middle point of the building, into our secure back house area. All of the areas that are red are secure card access only by licensed or certified employees who are approved for cannabis facilities by the state, and there's no public access, no paint or customer access or any kind of access into those red areas except for those particularly approved employees. And that includes delivery driver.
Okay, so the red is basically secured offices, right? Kitchen, bathroom, desks.
It is
offices.
absolutely card controlled, electronic lock. Yes.
The blue area, is that where your pharmacist is actually, if this is a drugstore and I come in, is that where the pharmacist is dispensing the goods?
No, the pharmacist, this is actually a staff member that's out at the point of sales areas. A pharmacist is required. It's not like a pharmacist in a typical pharmacy. This is a pharmacist that is just there to do the preliminary, the initial first-time evaluations of new patients through their medical record, and is there to ask specific questions that are appropriate for a pharmacist from any patients. But generally, it looks on the sales floor very much like any retail store that would have point of sales counters, that you would see.
So if I walk in the store, that blue
like
area,
a Kohl's or
can I, what's the
that
blue
blue area
area?
is not
It's
accessible.
all
sir.
walled in.
The blue
You can't
area
even
is
see- you can't see
yeah,
inside the walls?
yes, that's correct, sir. It's not accessible to anyone, but only a very small portion of our staff. It's a vault, it's a secure room, and that is where all we have to have this under the state, and it's where our product is stored when it's not being transferred.
Okay,
Patient.
and your fenced in portion, you're coming up the side of the building. You're not going in the rear building. Right? You're following this red line? Your red line?
Correct.
See this red dotted line that comes up the side and then comes in? That's
I'm
that's
sorry,
your
sir,
rear
I'm not
entrance. Is that your rear entrance?
Correct.
Yeah,
That's
there's
so
actually
Wait, one
there's
at a
actually
time.
no entrance at the rear. The product is delivered along the red dotted line from the rear parking area to the side of the building. The north elevation. There's no dresser hall or
That's the only
into
other
that small
entrance then.
room.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up there,
Yeah,
Adam.
Mr. Cole is breaking up. We have an issue with his testimony only because He's breaking up and we're not getting an accurate record of what he's saying, nor can the zoning hearing board hear his responses. Mr. Cole, is it possible to change locations or clear up this issue?
Yeah, I'm changing the location.
Is that better?
The image seems to be frozen at times. There he is. All right.
Can people hear me okay now? Is this work?
Yeah, that's much better. Dave, can you hear him?
Okay, I apologize.
So
Okay,
I guess
my
just to
apologies,
follow-
folks. I wasn't
Yeah, just
aware
to-
of that condition.
just to follow up, the only other entrance besides the front doors is what's coming up the side, right? Is that what you're saying? Where the red lines take you in?
Yeah, there's an emergency egress on the south elevation or the left side of this drawing also, but that will only be used for emergency egress matters.
So does that get
the-
enclosed? Does that get enclosed?
No, no, the enclosure is only necessary because deliveries have the requirement to be screened from public view.
Oh, that's
And the
fine.
deliveries
Okay.
come through that doorway.
So we're only having one fence around the side and around the back. So you can back a truck in, hide it, and deliver your stuff. The steps that are shown in the back corner near that purple area, are they not working steps? That's not a means of ingress and egress?
No, sir, that room is constrained to that one room only. It has no interface with any other portion of the building, and inside of that is reserved for fire equipment and a ladder to the roof hatch.
I don't have any more questions. Mr. Conroy?
I don't think the applicant wants to hear me anymore.
Mr. Sanders, do you have any questions or input?
The only thing I was going to do was ask Mr. Conroy, and I think you've covered it, about his interpretation regarding the parking. Dave, if this applicant came in fresh, there was no prior zoning decisions or any other approvals, and they said that they wanted to provide, let me get the number right. And said they wanted to provide 1,951 square feet of store sales floor space. And this is brand new. Would you tell them they needed parking for the whole 4,500, or would you say they need 20 spaces for the 1,951 square feet?
Well, one thing they didn't do as well is you have to calculate the office space as well. That's a different parking ratio. The storage area is another parking ratio. I mean, they're saying they need 19 parking spaces. It's probably closer to 25, 26, to be honest with you. But since it was the same applicant, the same applicant that had the prior zoning relief, as I always say, each application is different. This was the same applicant that had the zoning relief for parking in the first place.
Right.
Now they want to reduce the parking by another 3 spaces. I'm trying to keep everything consistent as possible on this property for future records, let's say 10 years from now. So we know how to interpret it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to do from a township standpoint.
Right, and I would say to the zoning hearing board that if the zoning hearing board grants relief, that we be careful that the relief that's granted is specific to this tenant only and is tied in directly with the amount of sales floor space that they are proposing, and that another tenant that came into this space in the future would have to may have to modify the parking requirement if it's proposing additional sales floor space. So that's my sort of comment on that.
And applicant's agreeable to that.
Thank you, Ms. Von Spreckelsen. Ms. Von Spreckelsen, did you want to take Mr. Cole through his testimony in chief or
Yes.
offer proof and that he can confirm?
Yes, it's very brief. I'll try to go through it quickly. If Mr. Cole was to testify, he'd state he's a senior project manager for PharmaCann. Mr. Cole would further testify his duties as senior project manager include pre-construction and construction project management services, and that he's worked with other Pennsylvania municipalities and Pennsylvania inspectors to obtain local and state permits and approvals for PharmaCann. He would testify he was engaged by PharmaCann with regard to the property subject to the zoning application to assist in obtaining municipal permits and approvals for the dispensary. He would testify he's familiar with the property, the zoning application, and all exhibits contained in the exhibit booklet. He would testify that a fully enclosed security fence with a lock gate that will include a Knox box for emergency access by the fire department is proposed surrounding the loading area behind the building where the 3 parking spaces are proposed to be enclosed. Mr. Cole would testify that the fence will encircle the loading area and continue up along the existing ramp on the property that connects the loading area to the rear side entrance of the building, which entrance faces the building located on 615 West Germantown Pike, as shown in the site plan at Exhibit Tab 5. And also with regard to the fence detail plan in Exhibit Tab 6. Using those exhibits and the aerial photograph of existing property conditions, Mr. Cole would testify that the lowest grade of the property is in the location of the loading area and that the property slopes upward as it comes closer to Germantown Pike. Mr. Cole would testify that the delivery entrance into the buildings located on the rear side of on the property that faces the building located at 615 West Germantown Pike. He would testify that the delivery entrance is at a grade which is approximately 2 feet higher than the grade of the loading area. Mr. Cole would testify that due to this change in grade and in the loading area to the delivery entrance, and because Pennsylvania statute requires an enclosed secure area out of public site for loading and unloading medical marijuana products into and from a transport vehicle, it's necessary that the proposed enclosed security fence be 8 feet in height at the lowest grade of the property, but as the slope grade increases upward, a zoning compliant 6-foot high fence is proposed. He would testify that an 8 feet high fence in that location is necessary in order to screen the transport of the product from the loading area into the delivery entrance as is required by Pennsylvania statute. He would testify that the fence extends approximately 52 feet in length and that the portion of the fence that is proposed at 8 feet in height is approximately 20 feet in length. Mr. Cole would testify the fence is chain link fence constructed of galvanized metal wire bound with privacy slats and is internal to the site. Mr. Cole would testify that a variance is requested to allow a portion of the fence to be 8 feet in height rather than the maximum permitted height of 6 feet in order to fully screen the transport of the product from the loading area into the rear side delivery entrance as required by Pennsylvania statute and due to the slope grading of the site. He would testify that the 8-foot high portion of the fence will not be detrimental to the public welfare because it's not located on a property line, but is rather internal to the site. And in fact, that it is beneficial to the public welfare by providing a screened enclosure for safety and security reasons. Finally, he would testify that the fence height variance requested is the minimum necessary to afford relief and requires the least modification possible of the regulations at issue. And that would conclude his offer of proof.
Thank you.
If I could take him through to just affirm it. Adam, you've been present and heard the offer of proof that I presented to the zoning hearing board. Is that correct?
Yes,
And do you affirm that if you testified, you would have testified consistent with my offer of proof and that you adopt the offer of proof as your own testimony?
yes,
Is there anything in my offer of proof that you would change?
no,
Is there anything you would like to add to the offer of proof?
no.
That's all I have of this witness.
Mr. Sanders, I just have a couple of follow-up questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Aprile, it would be appropriate for board questions at this point from Mr. Cole based on the testimony that he just affirmed.
Okay, Amy, you're up. Any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Denise?
No, Chairman, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, anything else?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have one question. had thought that the steps leading up in the back area were the actual ingress area for the shipments, but it's actually going to be taken up the sloping ramp per the dotted line and into the side of the building, correct?
Correct.
Is that delivery going to be secure? I mean, if people are, delivering a controlled substance, essentially, their security for that?
Yeah, well, it would be secure in the fact that it's a secured entrance at the bottom into the enclosure. It's a secured entrance into the building, and both sides of the ramp, the one being protected by the natural wall of the building, the other side of the ramp being protected by the proposed fence.
Okay.
It's also under surveillance.
Oh, okay. Is that common practice for cannabis dispensaries?
It is. It's a requirement that the loading and unloading of product be done within a secured enclosed area that is screened from public view.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mr. Daly. I have a question on operating hours. Do you know what the
Standard operating
are?
hours? Yes, our standard operating hours are 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
7 days a week?
Correct.
8 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
9 a.m. to
9
9 p.m.
9 to 9, gotcha.
I mean, there is some subject to potential to variance over time, but those are our standard operating hours.
Dave Conroy, do we have an ordinance on hours? We have everybody closing in there at 8 p.m. right now on Sunday.
What's that?
We have the other two tenants closing at 8 p.m. on Sundays.
There's nothing in the ordinance.
Okay. And a question for Mr. Sanders. Should we amend what we did in 2016?
Well,
Because we talk
should
about lot
discuss
B
it. I mean,
shall be a retail use for one tenant, and we could allow it to be a retail space up to 1,951 square feet.
right. I think that I would recommend, out of the relief that the applicant has requested, I would recommend that the zoning hearing board grant a variance to allow 36 parking spaces rather than 39 parking spaces, but note that that is based on 1,951 square feet of sales floor space for this tenant only, and that any future tenant must meet all applicable parking requirements based on sales floor space provided.
Okay, and one other question on the 2016 order. There was discussion about a left turn lane off of Germantown Pike into this property. And I always thought it was never followed up on because this place was never leased up. Will this kick in? Will this now require that left turn lane to be put in off of Germantown Pike into the property at the traffic light? Do we know that?
If it was a condition that was granted relief for this property previously and it has not been met yet, then it would still be applicable, I would think. Dave Conroy, do you know about that?
Yes, it's still applicable.
Which means that it's required or it's not required?
It's required.
And of this tenant or both property? They're all single properties, right? Both of these are separate property owners?
It's required for all properties there.
They're subdivided properties, 2 separate parcels.
And do we have to enforce this on this order?
I don't think we have to enforce it on this particular order. We can make it a condition of this granting, if the board grants, that the applicant comply with all prior conditions of zoning hearing board approval obtained previously. And I would ask Ms. Von Spreckelsen if that is acceptable to our client.
Yes, anything that was a condition of approval would be still required to be followed. I didn't remember seeing that condition of approval, that particular condition of approval. I'm trying to go through the,
Maybe it was in the notes of testimony.
It's right. It's not in the order, but it's in the testimony. It's number 26 on page 5 of the testimony.
Alex,
I'm here. This is just the first time I'd seen this condition of approval for this particular property. So I don't have it in front of me. I'm looking for it on our server here.
Isn't it one of these exhibits on the book? Or?
It's not a condition of approval for the,
Well, I don't have it in front of me either, but is there a condition attached to that approval that says that the applicant shall?
No, Dave, it just says that the applicant's traffic engineer is working with PennDOT, and there's likely to be a dedicated left turn lane into the property, and nothing ever happened.
Okay, well, but let me say in the order, in the part that says what the relief is and the order part, is there a condition that we almost always add now that says that the applicant shall undertake the use in substantial compliance with the testimony and evidence presented to the zoning hearing board? And Dave Conroy's nodding yes.
I believe so, yes.
So would that be one of the zoning relief is conditioned upon the following? Would that be one of those bullets?
well,
Yes.
I mean, if I may, I mean, I don't know if that's, it's a PennDOT road. I don't know if PennDOT would permit it. I mean, they can continue to work with PennDOT. I mean, that was never a condition of approval of the prior zoning decisions. I can't even find it in the actual decisions themselves that it was even discussed. But I mean, we can't provide it if PennDOT won't allow it. Our hands are tied.
Well, how do we get an update on it? I mean, it says that they've been working on it, and that's 5 years ago. So there has to be some resolution here, right?
I'm looking on our server now, and I believe can we follow up with the hearing board on this particular item?
Well, we've got to resolve it tonight if you want action from the board tonight. The issue is, it doesn't seem to be a requirement, a specific condition of approval. It was discussed at the hearing, and the testimony was that the applicant's engineer is working with PennDOT to explore that option.
Right.
It is a PennDOT road. I don't think this board can impose a condition that says put a left turn lane into this property from Germantown Pike, because that's reliant on PennDOT standards. I think the best that we can do is ask the applicant to follow up with PennDOT and continue to explore the viability of installing a left turn lane into the property. But I don't think we can require that left turn lane to be installed, even based on the prior approval, Dom.
And I agree with you, Mr. Sander, and applicant will do that. They'll follow up with PennDOT.
Well, I was on the board that approved the 2016, and I remember this fairly well. And there's a lot of trouble at that intersection because people make left turns. They just stop in the middle of Germantown Pike and make a left turn. And if they don't have a clear way to go, everybody behind them could just rear end them. That's how it stops. And that's why we asked for them to look into it. Because it wasn't going to be fully leased at the onset, we let it go. But it was put in the testimony that they were investigating it. And I'd really like to know what the answer is. It's 5 years later, and I would think somebody has an answer.
If I can chime in real quick. This went through the land development process basically after the prior zoning decision was made. All traffic reviews were done during that land development process. So this has been reviewed by traffic engineers, by the applicant, and on the township side, as well as PennDOT. So in general, the resolution has, in general, this issue has been resolved.
So are you saying, Dave, that the township and PennDOT do not require it?
I'd have to
Is that what
review-
you're saying?
I'd have to review the land development file regarding the traffic. But this was substantially reviewed during the land development phase after this zoning relief in 2016 was obtained.
Right, and half the property was vacant. So did they require it if the other side got rented up?
That wouldn't be an issue, Don, because they would require the traffic study for the entire proposed land development and assume that it was going to be occupied.
So they wouldn't let them do it. They wouldn't let them build the building without putting that turn.
They wouldn't let him build the building without the traffic improvement, if the traffic improvement was warranted by PennDOT reviewing the plans, the land development plans for this development. I think the best we can do is require the applicant to follow up with PennDOT on the left turn lane into the property from westbound Germantown Pike and report to the township regarding that status. I don't think we can impose a condition that says install a left turn lane if PennDOT is in charge and they're going to be the ones to make the ultimate decision.
Okay, let's move forward. Do we have a motion? Anybody have a motion out there?
I'll move to grant a variance, to allow 36 parking spaces for the proposed retail use. It has 1,951 square feet of store sale floor space at the 601 West Germantown Pike. In order to allow a loading dock on the premises, really reduce the three parking spaces. I
You
hope
said
that's
36 spaces, Mr. Daly?
yes, 36 spaces.
36, okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before that motion gets seconded, I'd like to present for the zoning hearing board's consideration some conditions that I think may be applicable to granting this application on Mr. Daly's motion. The first would be to require the installation of a Knox box to be installed at the premises to the specifications of the township's emergency services department. The second condition would be that if this tenant leaves this property, that it must remove the fence and reinstate the 3 parking spaces that it is using for the loading area. The third condition would be that relief herein is granted specifically for 1,951 square feet of sales floor space, and that a future tenant must meet the applicable parking requirements based on whatever sales floor space that is proposed in the future. The fourth condition is that the applicant must meet all other township codes and ordinances and all applicable state requirements for a medical marijuana dispensary. Fifth condition is that the applicant shall comply with all conditions of prior zoning hearing board decisions. Sixth condition is that the applicant shall follow up with PennDOT on the left turn lane into the property from westbound Germantown Pike and report to the township regarding that status. And finally, that the applicant shall undertake the use in substantial compliance with the testimony and evidence presented to the zoning hearing board tonight and obtain all applicable permits and approvals required for the use.
Hey, Dave, can we just make that a written follow-up with the township on the PennDOT issue? And the
Sure.
square footage, it's a maximum retail square footage, the 1951?
Right, that's it. That is the, well, that is a maximum square footage for this use
Right, for
For
this
a-
use. I understand that. For this
sales
tenant.
floor, yeah, for,
And the lockbox or the knockbox is only for this tenant also. Because of the fence.
right, right.
The fence comes down, they don't need to have a knockbox back here.
Okay. We'll say for this tenant only. Okay, with those additional conditions as revised by Mr. Aprile, Mr. Daly, do you adopt them in your motion?
I do. Mr. Sanders,
And
thank you.
we need a second on that.
I second. However, are we going to get input from other attendees?
Well,
For
we need to ask for public comment, but let's make the motion first
Oh,
and see if we have public comment on that.
all right, I second.
Now we have a motion and a second. We've heard the motion, Mr. Aprile. It would be appropriate to ask for public comment on the proposed motion and on the application.
Right, do we have anyone out there that has a comment, opposes, or is for this application? We have no residents in the back there?
Can we take down the shared screen, please? Ms. Von Sprecher,
yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No, I just get a better view of who's on the Zoom.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess, are there anybody on the Zoom that wishes to make a public comment on this matter, as Mr. Aprile just requested? If you could signify by either raising your hand or unmuting yourself and identifying yourself for the record. Okay, going once, going twice. I don't see any, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's have a roll call on that amendment,
Right, on the motion, right.
on the motion, I'm sorry. Amy, you're up.
In favor?
Denise,
In favor?
Ryan,
In favor.
and the chair's in favor. It's approved 4-0.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. Appreciate your
Good luck.
time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for all
Thank you,
the
everyone.
information.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, I think next up, we're going to have 1911 Sandy Hill Road. Is that correct, Dave Conroy?
Yes.
That is Angel Acevedo.
Yes,
Did I get that right? Did I pronounce
yes,
it
you
right?
did. You got it right.
Thank you. Okay, so we have on an application for a variance for Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended. Article 19, section 1908.1, the variance request is to allow a 12 by 24 storage shed where a maximum of 12 by 12 is allowed. The property is 1911 Sandy Hill Road in an A residential zoning district. Mr. Acevedo, you're on.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I am here
Sir,
to I
Let
am
me
here.
swear you in,
Hold on,
excuse
hold
me.
on, hold on, hold on. Mr.
Oh, I'm
Acevedo,
sorry.
you
We
have to be
swear you
sworn,
in.
you have to be sworn in by
Oh,
Ms.
okay, I'm sorry.
Ms. Mazzaros.
Sorry, Paula.
Paul, I think you're frozen.
I'm frozen?
No,
No,
Paul is
Paul.
frozen.
Okay.
So let's just wait for her to unfreeze and,
For some reason, I'm having internet problems. If I get disconnected, I'll dial right back in.
okay, that's fine. We have to wait for our court reporter to get back in. So that's why we're on hold here.
No worries. Thank you.
And there she is.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great. Sorry about that. Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr.
Sorry,
Acevedo,
sorry about that, Paula. Okay, Mr. Acevedo, you're on.
Thank you,
Again,
thank you. I'm here to ask for a permit for a larger shed. Our shed and car garage are full. We just sold our home in the Poconos, so the tools and my lawn equipment from their house, we brought over here, and I really have no room to store them. In addition, I also have 6 grandkids, which we have their bikes, their toys, which we store also, which I would like to store. Right now, I'm actually storing all that stuff in my garage. We would appreciate your consideration of granting us the permit for a bigger shed so we can store our tools and other items in the shed instead of my garage. It will be great to be able to park my car in the garage again.
okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you, sir. I'll turn it over to board for questions. Amy, do you have any questions?
What is the size of what is the acreage of this lot? Is it 1.4?
1.4.
And will you have utilities running to your shed? Any electric or
No, no electricity, none of that.
just for storage? How do you access that shed? Will there be a driveway to it, or will it just be?
If you look at my plans today, we have a
Yes.
shed there today, 12 by 12.
Yes.
So the access will have, it will have 2 doors in the front, and we'll open the doors and just get access to get into it.
Okay, so there won't be a driveway, or you won't be driving a car back to it.
No,
No, it's just-
it'll in the back where the grass is.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. Denise?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Mr. Acevedo, according to the application, is it correct that you're going to demolish the existing shed?
Yes, I'm gonna get rid of that guy. I don't know how, but right now, once I get approval, then I can make the preparations to have that one removed from the property.
Okay, is it going to be replaced in the same area, or you already picked a different area?
No, I would like to keep it in the same area, except it's gonna be a little longer, so it's just gonna stick out towards the right.
Right, but it'll be in
Same
same,
area.
right, okay, thank you, that's it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks, Denise. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Acevedo, what is the, what's going to be the height of the shed?
I would say the height of the shed is standard size. It's not like a duplex. It's gonna be like a 1 floor.
Yeah, I think it's 12 feet, is it not, Mr. Sander?
They're 12 or 16, I forget, Dave Conroy.
12 is the
14.
maximum height.
12,
12 high, okay. So it'll be no greater than 12 feet high.
right,
Right.
okay. And where is it? Well, I can't tell from the schematic exactly where the garage is relative to the shed.
My garage is attached to my house,
Oh, okay,
and the shed is at the end of the property.
I can see that. Okay, I see that now. All right, I have no further questions, Mr. Acevedo. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
And Mr. Acevedo, I just have a couple of quick questions. The shed is square right now, 12 by 12, correct?
Yes,
And so the new shed, the 24-foot section, is that going to run front to back or left to right?
it's gonna run left to right.
That's going to actually come into your property further.
Yes, if I'm following you correctly.
Okay,
I'm not going to the back, I'm going left to right.
right, you're coming inside, into the middle.
Right.
And on the schematic, there's a rectangle in the middle of the backyard. Is that something there? What is that?
There's nothing there. The only thing I have towards the right of the property was a septic tank, but they're ways away from the property, from the shed.
Okay,
It's all empty in the back.
okay. And did the neighbors, are your neighbors for it, against it? Any comments from your neighbors?
No, they're for it. I did talk to my guy on the right and on my left, and they actually said they see no problem. They were the ones that actually encouraged me to file the application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dave, do you guys have any questions for?
My only question, and just looking at the plan, my question is really for Dave Conroy. Is there a side yard setback issue with the location of the current shed and or the location of the proposed new shed?
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. Just, Mr. Acevedo, please remember you have to be at least 4 feet off the property line, the side property line with your new shed.
Okay, 4 feet off my side, it'd be more than 4 feet off the property line.
That's
And
fine.
from the back of the property, it'll be pretty long, it's big.
Oh, yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, it's just, you have to be 4 feet off the rear and side property lines. That's
Just the party side, where you have,
Okay.
your,
4 feet,
looks
got
like you
it.
have a shared
Yeah,
driveway with that neighbor. Is that, that's the neighbor. It's got to be 4 foot off that line.
Oh, I got you. That'll be 4 foot off.
And Dave Conroy, is this 2 lots? There's that Z, does that mean consolidation of 2 prior lots?
That's what it looks like.
Okay. I'm just wondering because I see what looks like another property line running right through the middle of the, what Mr. Acevedo described as his sanitary sewer area. I didn't know what that was.
No, it
Does
looks
Mr.
like it's a joint. It looks like it's all one lot.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And that's what the township records show.
Correct.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Do you want to go, any questions to the audience, or do we want to have a motion? Do we have a motion?
We could ask if there's any public comment, Mr. Aprile.
So does anyone in the audience have public comment for or against this request?
Again, if you want to make a comment, you can either use the raised hand function or unmute yourself and identify yourself for the record. Anyone wish to make a comment on this application for or against or neutral? Okay.
It looks like there's none out there.
Don't see any.
So let's go. Do we have a motion for this request? No one has a motion.
I'll make a motion since I'm the motion guy tonight, I guess.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to grant the variance as requested as follows to allow a 12-foot by 24-foot storage shed where a maximum of 12 feet by 12 feet is allowed on the property located at 1911 Sandy Hill Road in an A residential zoning district.
Just to amend it, there will be no utilities. The old shed will be removed, and all other township codes will be followed. Correct?
Yep.
That's acceptable. Thank you.
Do we have a second?
I'll make a motion to second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Amy, you're first.
In favor.
Denise,
In favor.
thank you. Ryan,
In favor.
and the board votes in favor. You're approved 4-0. Good luck, Mr. Acevedo.
Thank you, but especially thank you all for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Acevedo. I appreciate it.
Am I able to leave the meeting now?
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely. You'll receive a written
We know
decision.
it's
Have a good night.
Have a good night. Thank
Mr.
you.
Sander, can I leave now?
No.
I was going to suggest a 5-minute break.
In
that doable?
favor.
In favor.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can we take a 5-minute break?
Sure. We'll move to have a 5-minute break.
It's 8:28. We'll convene at 8:33.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, it's 8:33. Are we all back? We're ready to roll?
I am.
I hope so. Let's see, Denise and Amy.
Waiting on Denise.
Here's
There
Denise.
she goes. Paul is out there.
Paul is here. And we need Amy.
Amy. And we have Mr. Ziders. Zaders.
It's Ziders. Ziders?
Ziders, you got it.
Thank you, sir.
No worries.
All right, Amy's back. Dave's here. Dave Conroy, Dave Sanders. Are we good to go here?
We are good to go, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the next request is a variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance 342 as amended in Article 19, Section 1909.e. Variance is to request a fence within the side yard setbacks. The property is located in 1957 Linda Drive in the D residential zoning district, and we have Dan Zaders on the line.
Yep.
Mr. Zader, you need to be sworn in.
Spell your name for the record, please.
Last name Zeiders.
Thank you. Please raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Zader, Dan, why don't you tell us what you want to do here?
Sure. So I bought the property about 3 years ago, so I own the residence here and would like to put a fence in the, it would be a normal side yard, but due to the lot being on a corner, it is, I guess, technically a front yard. And the ordinance does not allow the fence to be past the front of the building. So I'm looking for relief to run the fence as it's shown on the exhibit that I provided, and then return it to the building and as if it was a normal yard, and not any further than that. I'd like it just for privacy. We get a lot of cars that turn around in the court back here. I just had a daughter 6 weeks ago and plan on raising my family here. So I'd love for her to be in the backyard. Got it. Love for her to be in the backyard with a little bit more peace of mind that it's, a little more secure and not as visible for passerbys.
Okay. You had mentioned there's a diagram. I don't see a diagram. I see a aerial of your house.
It was an aerial and it's drawn on there, the proposed location of the fence.
Oh, hold on. I see a thing that says, Mr. Aprilia, 6-foot vinyl fence, and it's got an arrow pointing to the location. Pointing, yeah, toward, it looks like the sidewalk. It's very difficult to see anything drawn on this.
You have a color version? Is that?
Yeah, I can share my screen if you'd like.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
Can everybody see the screen?
Aha. Yes.
So your driveway's on a cul-de-sac?
No, my driveway is on Linda Drive here.
Oh, okay. You have the red car and the little.
Yep, the red car and the red car here. Yep, correct.
And you want to go all the way up to the neighbor behind you's driveway?
Correct. The neighbor behind here has a fence that conceals their driveway from our backyard already. I'm not sure if that, I don't have their boundary survey, so I'm not sure if that fence falls in, I believe it falls in their property. So it seems like there might be prior approval in place for that. So the fence would tie into that fence, similar height of fence, different style. They have a lattice at the top, I don't know, maybe 2 feet, whereas mine would be solid 6-foot vinyl. And then I'd like to run it along the sidewalk on the interior of the property side of the sidewalk, approximately 2 feet, depending on where the tree trunks are shown here. It might, give or take a foot or so. And then return it to the building in front of the driveway. And since submitting this application, we've actually decided, my wife and I, that this portion of the return to the building, we're thinking of doing a 4-foot picket fence to leave a little bit of open space here to not have it be entirely shut off. But my point earlier was a lot of people, I don't know if you're familiar with the location, but there's an Outback Steakhouse and some retail in the front of this entrance, and a lot of people do come down here and make a U-turn essentially in the Colonial Court, then head back out.
Okay. Questions? Amy?
Hi, sorry about that. Have you spoken to your neighbor about tying into their fence?
I have not spoken to that neighbor. They are renters, and I've not had a chance to catch them, or really ever speak to them, honestly. But I have spoken with the immediately adjacent neighbor that is attached to my building, and he's all for it.
Okay, these are twins, as it were.
Correct.
Okay.
You can
And just to follow up on Ms. Letich's question, yeah, I see that. Renters, but do you know who owns that property?
I do not. I believe it is a sole owner that owns a couple of properties in this vicinity. I see him in and out. I know he owns a couple of pieces directly across from me, but no, I do not know who the exact owner is.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Letich? Sorry to interrupt.
And just to confirm, Ms. Letich, when I say tie into it, it's not going to be physically attached to their fence. There would be an additional post set immediately adjacent to their fence.
Okay. And will you have a gate?
There would be a gate with access to the driveway. It'll actually allow me to conceal my trash cans right now, as they sit in the front of the driveway and are rather unsightly.
So you'll have a gate near where your cars are shown.
Yeah,
there.
near right, almost in front of where the red car is shown, somewhere in that vicinity. No gate accessing to the court.
I have no additional questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Amy. Denise Pygott, Ms. Pygott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Zeters, I just have a question. It appears that the fence is going to be very close to the curb. I think you said 2 feet from the sidewalk, the inside sidewalk.
Correct.
Would that obstruct the street view of Linda Street from that house? Not your direct neighbor, but the other house that has the red car? If they wouldn't be able to see onto Linda Drive? Is that going to obstruct their view of you having?
Where's Linda Drive at?
I will let whatever your street is.
My street is Linda Drive.
Yeah, Linda Drive. Yeah. So that house to the right of this view, it would be like the third. Your house is the first on the left, and there's the rented house, and then the one next to the
Hold on. Hold on.
I'll pick them up tomorrow, and I'm thinking.
Excuse me.
Can we clear that up?
Yeah, Pixel 3AXL. All right, I think she put it on mute. Thank you. Apologies, Mr. Ziders.
No worries.
I think you were discussing the question regarding site distance from your neighbor.
Yeah. Which I'm not sure which property.
You said the property directly behind you is a rented property, but
Correct.
Next to that property is another house that sits a little forward, closer to the sidewalk there within that cul-de-sac.
Okay.
So if they were in their front yard, would your fence obstruct the view of your street, Linda?
It would. It looks like from here I can draw a line. Maybe it looks like there would be an obstruction up until where the left turn is. They would not be able to view Linda Drive.
They wouldn't be able to see. Okay.
Not be able to view Linda Drive, basically from the corner, down towards Ridge Pike.
Okay, they wouldn't be able to see the house in front of you or the house driveway to the right of your front where that blue car is. They wouldn't be able to see.
Does not appear that way, no.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. All right, that's the only question I have right now.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ms. Pygott. Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Myers, why the need for a 6-foot fence?
Just because the grade immediately adjacent to the fence along the sidewalk is basically the same. So anybody that would be walking along there, I would like to have some obstruction of view into my backyard.
Okay, I see. Have you spoken to that neighbor that Ms. Pygott was referencing about it, whether they might have any concern about obstruction there?
No, that house actually just sold in the last month or two, and I don't believe they've moved in yet, as they were doing extensive renovations. It seemed there's been a lot of construction over there. Looks like gutting the house and remodeling.
Okay, so essentially, there's no one to talk to.
Correct. Not that I've seen or been introduced to.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Daly. Just a couple of quick questions. Please, so the fence is going to go out the front and then wrap around to the back, attach, or be right off the driveway fence? I'm sure that driveway, Dave Conrad, doesn't that driveway have to have a side yard area?
Nah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly where that property line is out there.
Okay.
You can't tell by this aerial photo where the property lines are.
Correct.
Are you going to extend your fence along that driveway, along the other
No.
fence, or are you going to use the other fence?
No, I would put a post immediately adjacent to that existing where that fence terminates. So it would not extend beyond that fence or wrap that driveway. It would not provide any additional screening of that driveway.
Okay, and you have a fence between you and your attached neighbor in the back?
I do.
Okay, so that would close the loop basically, right?
Correct.
The only other question or issue that I have, you're going to be 2 feet off the sidewalk?
Approximately, that was the plan, yes.
Okay, and then
For a
any
mow strip.
planning- any
Enough
planning-
to get a mower on it.
Right, okay, no plantings between the plantings, trees, bushes, between the fence and the sidewalk?
No.
Okay. I have no more questions. Does anyone in the audience have any comments on this request, either for or against?
Would you like me to stop sharing my screen?
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody on the Zoom that has anything to comment on for, against, or neutral on this application, please use the hand raising feature or unmute yourself and identify yourself for the record. Anybody? Okay, Mr. Chairman, does not look like there is any comment. Any
No
public comment?
comments. Do we have a motion on the request?
I'll make a motion that we grant a variance to allow a fence within the front yard setback at 1957 Linda Drive in the D residential zoning district.
As depicted, 2 feet off the sidewalk?
Yes,
No plantings between the fence and the sidewalk, just grass? And it looks like it's just the side yard. What we would consider a side yard in a normal situation. Correct, Brian?
yes,
Not
that's
out front.
correct.
Not past the front driveway.
Right.
Do we
And this
have a
would-
second on that? Is that it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to say this would be a variance from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended Article 19, Section 1909.e.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone want to second the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Amy. We have a second on the floor. Let's have a roll call. Amy, Ms. Letich, I'm sorry, I'll get it.
Leddick. It's Leddick.
Thank you.
Oh, it's
Um,
Leddick.
It's Leddick. And Ms. Leddick is in favor.
Thank you, Ms. Leddick. Ms. Pygott,
I'm opposed.
you're opposed?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Daly,
In favor.
and the board votes in favor. We have a 3-1. Does that carry?
That carries.
Thank you, sir. You're good to go, Mr. Z.
All right, thank you. And this is a quick follow-up. Can I immediately apply for the permit, or do I need to wait for the resolutions adopted at next meeting? What's the timeline? Or I can,
Wait till you get the decision in order in the mail,
okay,
which should be in a few weeks.
okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate the,
No problem.
have a good night.
Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next, next case on the agenda is Tyler Thomas, 824 Clover Lane. Correct, Dave Conroy?
Correct.
This is a motion for a variance from Plymouth Township Ordinance 342 as amended in Article 11, Section 602.c.1. The variance is to allow 4 foot 8 inch side yard setback where a minimum of 15 foot is required. The property is located on 824 Clover Lane in a B residential district. Is Mr. Thomas here?
Yes, right here.
Will
Good
someone
evening.
represent Mr. Thomas? You need to be sworn in, sir, and then you may go.
Say your full name for the record, please.
Tyler Thomas.
Raise your right hand, sir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, what would you like to do, sir?
Yes, so when I purchased the property back in 2017, I was a bachelor. Now I'm happily married and looking to start a family. So a little extra space in the house would really help things go a long way. So we're looking to add an addition off the back left corner, connector to the existing garage, which already, I guess, infringes on that side yard, but it was pre-existing before I bought the house. And so we're looking to push out the back of the garage as well for extra space. And so that's why I'm asking for the variance.
Okay, so when we look at your proposal,
Yes,
you have 4.8 existing because of the garage,
yes,
correct? And I think this is in our reports backward. The property line in the front, is that the driveway going out, right? Is that Clover Lane in the front
correct.
at the top of this,
Yes.
Illustration? So the garage is in the back, and then you want to add on to the back of the garage,
Correct.
straight back, and that's going to be an addition or a garage?
Well, the garage will remain a garage, and that extra space will be for tools, gardening stuff, just storage in general.
So it'll be a larger garage.
Essentially, I mean, with the connector, it's just increasing the dwelling.
Connector, when I look at this, and correct me if I'm wrong, the driveway comes up to the garage, and then you have 6.6 of connector area, 10 by 6 by
Yes.
6 by 6. That's not part of the garage, right?
Correct.
Is that on the roof?
Yeah, it's basically a breezeway.
Breezeway, okay. And then, so then you have a garage, you park cars in the garage?
Yeah, we're not sure whether or not we're going to do that.
Okay, and then you want to add a building behind the garage, correct?
Essentially, connected.
And is that building going to have access through the garage?
Yes, as well as out into the yard.
Okay, and is the access going to be wide enough to drive a car through it?
No, not the back area,
So it's just going to be a room off the back of the garage,
essentially.
almost like a shed.
Yeah, almost.
Okay, I just needed to understand what we were doing here.
No worries.
Dave Conroy, were you going to make a comment? I'm sorry.
No, the only thing I was gonna say is, with the connector, it makes everything one building. So the only thing you have to worry about at this point is the side yard variance. It's all considered one building with that connector.
So it's an attached garage.
Correct,
Right now, it's detached.
correct.
Okay.
No, it's not detached. The connector's there now, right?
No, there's no
No.
connector currently.
No.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's just kind of a walkway. I've seen the
The
property.
brick patio's there, or that's not there yet either.
No, there's no I mean, there's some pavers there currently, but not the final patio.
Is there a building there between the connector and the garage? 19 by
Well-
7.1, is there a building there?
No.
So you're gonna
Wait.
build that addition?
Yes, well, it's essentially 19 by 18 and 8 inches. So there's currently
the
a small
proposed-
mudroom attached on the back of the house. We are going to, or we intend to take that down and build a larger back room and then add a connector attaching the garage.
Okay, and the garage will remain a garage, not living space.
Correct.
And then there'll be an addition to the back of the garage, almost like additional garage or shed space, storage space, not living space.
Right.
We want to open it up to questions, Ms. Leddock?
So you're adding an addition onto the back of the house. Will you have are you adding, you said there's a mudroom there now. Will there be a full bath? Will that be living space, bedroom space?
It'll be a dining room area as well as an additional bathroom, a half bath. So powder room, not a half bath, sorry, powder room. And then also we'll move the washer and dryer into that area.
And then you're adding a patio to the back of that.
Correct.
And then will the connector be enclosed or will it be a breezeway?
It'll be
And
a
then-
breezeway with a roof overhead.
So the garage will be attached via a breezeway, but not an enclosed walkway.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay. And have you spoken to your neighbor on the property side that is closest to you where you're doing
Yes.
the addition?
Yep. And where the garage is closest to that neighbor, they seem completely fine with it. I'm not sure if they're on right now or not.
Okay. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Pygott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just have a question about, on the diagram, there's a structure, a rectangular structure behind the current garage. That's going to be a bigger garage, or what's that represent?
Yeah, that's the push out on the back of the garage that I've mentioned will be sort of like a shed. Tools, woodworking tools, that sort of stuff, some storage.
Okay, so that's going to have a separate entrance other than through the garage.
Right, there'll be an entrance into the yard as well as one connected to the garage.
Oh, okay. All right, so essentially you're going to have another room there and another room on the back of the house. So there'll be two really additional rooms.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you. That's all I
Thank
have.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Pygott. Mr. Daly?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Thomas, is the other side yard in your property larger than 30 feet 4 inches? Because I know the one in question is 4 feet 8 inches, and it's not going to be affected from what you said. And I understand the side yards have to, the total side yards has to be 35 square feet.
Right, so with the other side yard and this, it will not equal 35 feet. The other side yard, I think, is closer to 17 feet currently. I couldn't tell you for sure at the moment, though.
Okay. Dave Conroy, Mr. Sander, does that make a difference?
I think it's the same section of the zoning code where it states that where an aggregate side yard has to be 35.
Right.
So that probably should have been mentioned in the zoning ad itself. That's my fault. But it's the same section number was listed in the zoning ad. But you are correct, Brian. Both sides do have to add up to 35.
Gonna have to provide relief for both, right?
It's the same variance.
Aggregate
Right,
35
I
feet.
understand it.
Yeah.
I understand it. Okay. Good catch, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. No, I apologize. I was saying 35 square feet. It actually was, should have been 35
Linear feet, yeah.
Yeah, linear feet, right.
So
Those
what,
are-
do we know what the aggregate is now with well, it's staying the same. And I think a point here is nothing, there's no new encroachment. This is 4 foot 8 inches from the side now, and it's going to remain 4 foot 8 inches from the side. This application is sort of to legalize an existing, arguably non-conforming condition.
Right.
Do we know what the aggregate is? We know on one side it's 4 foot 8 inches. What is it from the house to the other side property line?
I believe it's roughly 17 feet, but like I said, I'd have to double check on that.
You're
Okay.
still well short of
Yeah.
35.
Correct.
So if it's 17 plus 4, 21 feet, 8 inches, and you need 35.
Yeah, so I don't know if the code was maybe created after the home was built originally.
And that's possible. Dave Conroy may know that.
More than likely, yes.
Yeah. And again, Dave, the only reason he's coming in is because he's doing an addition. He's not encroaching any more than a currently existing condition. And this is just to memorialize, if that's the right word, this condition.
Essentially, and I've been talking to Tyler over the last month or two. What he wanted to do, he's gonna need a variance either way. Like if he didn't have the connector, he would need a variance for the oversized garage. So now that he's making it one building, the only variance he needs now is for the side yard. You see what I'm saying? Like if there was no connector there, that garage would be too large.
It's
Okay.
already an existing non-conforming issue.
I understand. Okay.
Mr. Daly?
I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thomas, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So I just want to clarify a couple things here. Is your driveway shared? You have shared
So-
driveway?
When I moved in, I discussed that with my neighbor that shares the driveway. And apparently to him, most of the driveway is mine, or if not all of the driveway is mine. But it is shared. So I don't know exactly where the property line is, but if you're looking at the edge of in between our two garages and look towards the street, a perpendicular line would say that most of the driveway is on our side.
Is his garage 4.8 feet off? How close is his garage to your garage? It's not on here.
So where the property line is drawn, that's essentially where his garage is.
He's right on it.
Right.
Okay. You don't have any problem sharing driveway? Is there easements out there, Dave, on these properties for shared driveways?
I believe so, like from like the 1950s or something.
I know, this whole neighborhood's like this.
Correct.
Okay, and then the new space, the addition is fine. Well, no matter what you do, you got to come in for a variance because you're making a change and the garage is still non-conforming. Is that right, Dave Conroy?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so the addition's going to be regular living space. If you didn't have the garage variance, you have no issue with that. And then the new space behind the garage, that is not going to be living space,
Correct.
but it'll have utility, it'll have electric in there or won't have electric in there.
I might have electric in there. That's all. No water, no HVAC.
Okay, so no waters and no living space. The only living space will be the addition.
Correct.
Okay. I think we flushed it out. Does anybody else have any questions? Does the board have any other questions?
Just to confirm, Mr. Thomas, the house addition is 19 feet by 18 feet, 8 inches.
Yes, without knowing the exact dimensions of the framing and everything. So the inside dimensions of the entire addition would be 18 and a half by 17 and a half.
All right, well, I'm just going by your exhibit just to make sure I understand what what you're proposing, because I've got to write the decision and identify the various elements that you're adding onto the house. The connector is 10 feet 6 inches by 6 feet 6 inches.
Yep.
And the garage addition is 20 feet by 10 feet.
Correct.
Okay, so those are the three elements of addition that you're doing. The back patio, is that there, or you're building that as well?
That will be new.
That'll be new, 13 feet by
roughly 25 feet.
25 feet or so, 25 feet or so, 25 feet, 2 inches.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have a issue of property coverage? Total property coverage here? Dave
No.
Conroy, did you look at that?
I did.
Okay. Should we go out to the audience? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak up, speak to this or against this proposal?
Again, as we've done this evening, if you wish to make a comment, please use the hand raising function or unmute yourself and identify yourself for the record, please. Anybody wishes to make a comment on this application? Okay, Mr. Chairman, seeing none.
Okay, do we have a motion from the board on the proposal?
I'll make a motion to allow the variance as requested, to allow 4 foot 8 inch side yard setback where minimum of 15 feet is required for the property located at 824 Clover Lane in the B residential zoning district. Is there anything else?
And the addition behind the garage has no living space, just storage.
Okay, yes.
Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Roll call. Miss Leddock?
Leddick.
In
Leddick.
favor.
I'm sorry, Amy. Miss Leddick?
In favor.
Thank you. Ms. Pygott?
In favor.
Thank you. Mr. Daly?
In favor.
And the chair votes in favor. You're approved, Mr. Thomas, 4-1. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
4-0, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more. This is our Silver Springs Martin Luther School. So we have one application for an appeal from the determination of Plymouth Township zoning officer dated April 12th of 2021 that the prior Plymouth Township zoning hearing board decision do not permit children to attend the school past 8th grade, or in the alternative, a modification to the Plymouth Township zoning hearing board decisions dated August 2 of 1971 and September 25, 1972, to allow education of children in grades K to 12 or in the alternative, a special exception from Plymouth Township zoning ordinance number 342 as amended in Article 4, Section 400.c.1. Special exception request is as follows: to allow the education of children in grades K to 12. The property is located at 512 Township Line Road in a AA residential zoning district. Do we have anyone here from the from Silver Springs?
We do, Mr. Chairman. My name's Allison Fritches on behalf of applicant tonight.
How are you tonight, Allison?
Good.
Mr. Chairman, I
Join
think,
in and then you can present your case.
yeah, let me say a few things. I believe that the vast majority of folks on the Zoom and right now it shows about 48 participants. That includes the zoning hearing board and staff, but are here for this application. And I would like to formally mark the proof of publication of notice of the hearing as exhibit board exhibit 1, the proof of posting of the property with notice of the hearing as board exhibit 2, the application and all of its attachments, including prior zoning hearing board decisions on this matter as exhibit 3. There is some correspondence as well. We have an email dated May 5th from Ms. Fritches to myself and counsel for the township, extending the original zoning hearing date for the hearing to and through and including June 21st. And we have we'll mark that as exhibit board exhibit 4, and we'll mark board exhibit 5, additional correspondence via email from Ms. Fritches to myself and Dave Conroy, including counsel to the township, that continues this matter till tonight, July 19th. So that'll be board exhibit 5. And finally, we do have correspondence on the letterhead of the township solicitor, Rudolph Clark, that is signed by Mr. Heleniak, Heleniak, an attorney from the township solicitor's office, and Ms. Fritches on behalf of the applicant. That is a letter dated July 15th, 2021, and that outlines conditions that the township and the applicant have agreed upon if the zoning hearing board determines that it wishes to grant relief this evening. We will mark that as exhibit B for board 6. So those are the exhibits for this hearing. In consideration of the fact that there are a good number of people on here, I will ask, are there any parties or folks who wish to become a party who are represented by counsel? Are there any other attorneys who wish to participate in this proceeding on this hearing? Any other attorneys on the call, on the Zoom call?
Yeah, this is Todd Nurick. I'm an attorney, but I'm a resident at Hickory Estates, and I'm calling solely as a resident.
Oh, so you're not going to become a party to this matter?
I'm not going to be a party to the matter, but you asked if there are any attorneys on the Zoom call at all, and I didn't want to be on the record as not answering.
See what good attorneys do? That's
appreciate you.
They pay attention to what's said. Thank you.
Sanders, same for myself, Jeff Pastizian, attorney, representing myself as a homeowner.
As a homeowner, okay. Well, let me ask this. If there are no attorneys representing other folks who wish to become a party, are there any other folks who wish to become a party to this matter, which would allow you to call your own witnesses, cross-examine the witnesses presented by the applicant, and appeal any adverse decision? Now, you don't have to become a party to the matter to speak. Every single person on here will be permitted to speak to this application during public comment. So you don't need to be a party to speak, but being a party allows you, again, to call your own witnesses, cross-examine the applicant's witnesses, and appeal a decision that you are not in favor of or that you disagree with for legal reasons. Saying that, is there anybody on the Zoom who wishes to become a party to this matter? I'm not seeing any response to that request, so we will then move forward. I know that the township has taken an interest in this. I don't believe the township is represented by counsel at this hearing, but just for everybody's edification, the township is always, pursuant to law, a party to any zoning hearing board application. So if the township wishes to take an appeal, it may do so, but it doesn't look like it will be participating actively in this matter. So I think without further ado, Ms. Fritches, the floor is yours, and we'll need to identify and swear any witnesses that you wish to call.
Thank you, Mr. Sander. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name Allison Fritches. Last name is Fritzges for the court reporter. I have one witness to call tonight, but we do have our entire team on the call for you, just to make sure we have the right question answered by the right person. So I will list those, and Mr. Sander, maybe if we can swear all of them in together, that might be better. So they are Neil Clark, who is the VP of Operations. We have Ava Morrison, who's the Vice President of Education, and she's going to be the witness who's testifying tonight. Rafiq Williams, who is the principal of the Martin Luther School. Maria Taylor, the Supervisor of Special Education. Sasha Gaishlin, Dean of Students. And Siobhan Canavan, who's the Supervisor of Clinical Services and Admissions.
Okay, why don't we have that full group of folks sworn, but I'm gonna throw that over to our court reporter, Ms. Mazzaros, to determine how she wants to swear everybody in and get all those names for the record.
I believe I have all the spellings. So all I need is those names that were called. Please raise your right hand so I can swear you all in. And I have the list written down, so I'll indicate that in the transcript. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, from all of you? Thank you.
I just wanted to get the Neil, your first name is Neil Clark?
You're on mute, Mr. Clark.
Yeah, I'm working on it. Yes, thank you.
I could see you lean forward working on the unmuting. Neil. And I didn't get Sasha's last name.
It's Gachelin.
Gadhelin.
Nope. Gachelin.
Okay. Got it. Thank you. Okay, and we said that, I think you said that Ms. Morrison will be testifying.
That's correct.
Okay, so she is sworn, and I guess you can call your first witness.
Thank you. Just as a brief history as to how the Martin Luther School came to be, there's a zoning decision from 1971, August, that's part of our exhibit packet, where approximately 25 acres of the 35-acre tract that includes the entire property today was granted special exception approval for the Martin Luther School. Separately, in September of 1972, the additional approximately 10 parcels were added into to the school and was also granted special exception approval. So based on those two decisions, we have the Martin Luther School on the property. There are two separate uses on the property is how I like to think about it. There's a residential treatment facility on the property, and there's the Martin Luther School on the property. And first thing we want everyone to know on this call is that what we're asking for tonight will not affect the residential treatment facility at all. What we're asking for tonight is that the board permit students 9th through 12th grade to attend the Martin Luther School, the same hours that the students attend now, 8:30 to 3:30. But there will be no high school students that will attend the residential treatment facility. As Mr. Sander alluded to, there was a letter from the township. We were supposed to be here in May, and we got notice that the township had some questions. We met with the township, we were able to speak with them and address their concerns. And there are two conditions that we've agreed to put on the record as any part of approval tonight. And the township therefore does not have any opposition to this application. And we did get a recommendation of support from the Planning Commission last week as well. So in a nutshell, my testimony is not long. What we're asking for is for the board to allow us to welcome 9th through 12th graders to the Martin Luther School Recently, the Pennsylvania Department of Education has expanded our licensure for us to be able to do that. There are no improvements associated with this use. It's simply asking that to allow these students on the campus. In addition, we are aware that in the 1971 decision, there is a condition that there are 350 students capped at the school. And we understand that if we were to go above that, we would need to come back to the board for another approval and modification to the original decisions. So with that, I will have Ms. Morrison. Can you state your name for the record, please, and spell your last name?
Yes, it's Ava Morrison, Morrison. I also wanted to state that Sasha Gashlin and Maria Taylor are not on this call right now.
Okay, thank you. And in what capacity are you employed with the Martin Luther School?
I am the Vice President of Education and the school director.
And how long have you employed in that capacity?
This is my 3rd year.
Okay. And Mr. Sander, I should have noted my exhibits for the record that were sent to Mr. Conroy and yourself. Exhibit A1 is the deed to the property, A2 is the 1971 decision, and A3 is the 1972 decision. And
Thank you.
Ms. Morrison, this property is located at 512 Township Line Road, correct?
That's correct.
And it's in the name of Silver Spring / Martin Luther School, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you're authorized to testify tonight on behalf of the Martin Luther School?
I am.
And what grade levels does the school currently have attending there?
I can tell you that in a minute, but regarding the name, we also do business as Gemma Services. So it's Martin Luther Springs doing business as Gemma Services. I just wanted to make sure for the record.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just interrupt there. I just want to make sure we have the applicant and the owner all very accurately. I'm looking at the application and it looks like the applicant and the owner are exactly the same. Silver Springs hyphen Martin Luther School doing business as Gemma Services. GEMMA. Is that correct on both counts?
That's correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So Ms. Morrison, can you advise the board as to what grade levels are at the school and what ages those grade levels represent?
Yep. Currently, we serve students kindergarten through 8th grade, age 5 through 13, and we were recently approved by the Pennsylvania Department of Education for a license for students 9 to 12th grade, ages 14 to 18.
And how do you plan to accommodate the new students, the high school students coming to the campus?
We have currently admitted 10 9th grade students who were with us for 8th grade, and we're using a junior high school model in our junior high school building. So we would have 7th, 8th, and 9th graders there. The 9th graders would have their own floor.
And what time does the school begin and does the school end?
The students arrive at 8:30 and they leave by 3 o'clock.
And will those be the same hours for the high school students?
Yes, that's correct.
And I think you mentioned it, but how many high school students do you anticipate welcoming into this upcoming school year?
We've admitted 10 high school students.
Okay. And how many students do you currently have total on campus?
We currently have, during the school year, we had 180 students.
And in your opinion, will allowing the 9th through 12th graders on the campus substantially increase any traffic congestion?
I don't think so, no.
And why do you say that?
Well, currently with 10 students, it's not going to increase in the number of buses that deliver students to the school. And if there were ever a time where it would impact the traffic on Township Line Road, we would go to a staggered schedule.
Will there be any public safety issues as a result of welcoming these high school students to the school?
I don't believe so. We have a very high staff to student ratio. Our high schoolers have made application and want to come to our school. They're familiar with our school, and I would say that high schoolers typically, if they don't want to come to school, don't come. I don't anticipate high school students eloping off the property for any reason.
And could you explain some of the security measures you have in place to ensure that those things do not happen, as you mentioned, eloping?
Sure. So we do have a very high staff to student ratio. It's probably 1.5 staff for every student, and that does include regular classroom teachers, special area teachers. We have counselors, we have social workers. In addition to that, we also have a position that used to be called climate officers. We've changed the name of that position to be called student advisors. We have 7 student advisors. They're always present. They help students talk out issues and problems. And we have just currently added another position like that to our staffing roster.
Thank you. And would allowing the high school students put any burden on the township's public schools?
No, those students aren't from Colonial School District. They come to us from other school districts.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit how you talk about placing students back into district when they're ready to be placed into district, and how you determine what district is appropriate for each student?
There's a special education team, an IEP team that makes that decision collaboratively with the student, the parents, the students' families, the school district, and our school to determine if the student is placed appropriately back in home district.
Okay. And in your experience working there, in your experience in your educational background, would there be any public health, safety, or welfare concern with allowing students to be admitted to the high school program on your campus?
I don't believe so. In the 3 years that I've been there, there has been no public health concern. And I certainly have people from my team who've worked at Martin Luther School for a decade or more, and there is no recollection of any public health concern at all.
Thank you. Is there anything additional that you'd like to add to your testimony that you think would be helpful for the board?
Just that our students enjoy coming to Martin Luther School. They look forward to every day. We really care deeply about our students, and we look to provide them the best academic, social, and emotional services we can. And so we enjoy seeing them. They enjoy seeing us. They seek to come to our school. Our admissions process is very lengthy, and students who come to our school are glad to be there.
Thank you. That's all I have for this witness, Mr. Sander.
Thank you, Mrs. Riches. Mr. Chairman, I think it's appropriate for board questions for Ms. Morrison.
Okay. Let's go down the roll. Amy?
I see what you did there.
I have a question about the number of students attending. If your max capacity is 350, did you say you had 180 currently, and admitted for next year are 10 high school students total? Is that correct? So are we looking at a total attendance of 190 for the upcoming school year total?
We could have more than 190 students. Our enrollment is a little low right now, so we could have an increase for our K-8 students. I don't anticipate having a whole lot more 9th grade students. It is our intention to plan a very strong high school program, and so we don't want to have too big of an enrollment initially. I think the most number of students we would ever have per grade level would be 30.
So you're looking at a total of 30 students per grade level, capping at 350 total.
Correct. So we would never go over 350 students.
And what has the attendance been like over the past 3 years? It's this
around, I see what you're saying, it's around 200 students, I would say, per year. And that enrollment can increase or decrease slightly accordingly. During COVID, our enrollment was slightly lower, I would say around 170.
And once these students graduate from 8th grade, typically where are they going now?
They typically will go back to district. They'll go back to a regular education high school placement. And in some cases, they'll go on to a special education high school placement.
I don't have any additional questions right now.
Thank you, Ms. Lennox.
Perfect.
I was close. Denise, Ms. Pygott, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Morrison, I have a question. I know you mentioned ninth graders that you anticipate having 9 or 10 ninth graders or maybe more. So do you anticipate soliciting enrollment of 10th, 11th, and 12th graders if you were to be approved tonight for the fall semester?
No, so we really are intentionally starting small. We want to build a really positive and foundational ninth grade program. So we would not want 10th, 11th, or 12th grade graders. We anticipate this ninth grade class will be our first graduating class in the year 2025.
Okay, all right. And currently you said you have ages 5 through 13 is your student capacity right now, or student enrollment. Those students, are they residences? Do they stay after 3 o'clock, or does everybody leave? Okay.
On our property, and part of Gemma Services is a residential treatment facility for students who are between the ages of 5 and 14. Some of those students come to us. Currently, we have approximately 35 students. Again, just like community students, they have to go through our admissions process, and we only admit students where we think it's a good match for us and for them.
Okay, so with those 35 students, do they live there overnight or?
Yes, they return too. So that is a separate program, but those 35 students go back to the residential treatment facility.
Just on that same campus?
That's right.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pygott. Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have actually quite a few questions. I guess the largest one is what is the compelling reason to seek the expansion of the school, other than having been granted a license by the state?
We've had numerous requests from school districts to continue our program. We have a very strong program, and I think we're very well regarded. There are students who stay with us for quite a number of years, and those students really are provided with a very positive academic program. And we make sure that we help students grow in all areas. And, you know, we considered how we can continue to serve those students. And one of the things that we took into consideration is that having students with us and helping them to obtain their high school degree would be something that both students, families, and districts would be interested in.
Okay. And what would be the downside if you didn't get the variance? What would be, what damage would it potentially cause to your business or nonprofit model? I'm not trying to reduce it to business.
No, and no, it wouldn't. We didn't increase our school for 9th to 12th grade out of business reasons. That we believe we can help those students. We have a very strong track record of helping students to grow and returning them to in-district placement very successfully. Sometimes we get students who are in the 6th or 7th grade and they just haven't been with us long enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the district and families have asked us if we would be willing to continue that programming for them. And we believe that we can do that in a very positive way.
Okay, thank you. I understand that the students who come are often disciplinary cases. And I'm basing some of these questions on the questions to the planning board recently. And they may be disciplinary cases who aren't able to be accommodated in their home school district. I know you're not, your charter says it's not delinquent students, but that you wouldn't have students who are delinquent, so to speak. I presume that means sort of criminal activity. What would be the difference between the students who are disciplinary cases versus those who are actually delinquent?
Yeah, so there are students who are adjudicated through the court process, which means that they went to juvenile court, and we don't have students who have gone through that process and been charged. Our students come to us through a special education process for emotional support.
Okay. I know that there are programs like there used to be one called Genesis in the Colonial School District here. I'm not sure if that's the case. Are these students who would generally have been in a program like that or don't qualify?
I'm not familiar with Colonial's Genesis program, but sometimes public school districts have alternative schools.
Right.
That would be for a student, for example, who has been expelled for various reasons. So that's not our process. We don't currently have an alternative school. So our students come to us because they've gone through an IEP process where they've been given support in their local school district. And then at some point, their needs are no longer being met from the local school district. We do have the ability to have a much higher student to staff ratio so that they get the support that they need at our school.
Okay. And how would you, speak of student and staff ratios, how would you increase that? How would you increase that as the number of students increases? You said it's 1.5 now. Would you seek to retain that?
Yes, of course. So we continue to increase staffing because we do want to meet our students' needs. So currently we have approximately 120 staff. And we have increased our staffing for student advisors because we recognize with the 10 ninth graders, we're going to want to make sure that we're able to meet all of their needs. And that is a lot of talking through problems with our students and helping them to solve problems.
Okay. And so it's not as if you're going to be ramping up to 350 and have to start bringing in a huge number of staff to accommodate it.
No, we want to grow slowly because we want to do it really well.
Okay. I think the concern of a lot of residents is, the actual security as the number of people number of students would ramp up. What would be the security to, to ensure that there weren't any issues in the surrounding area?
Yeah, each of our students is known by name to us by multiple staff. Our staff have a relationship with each student. Even as the school director, I have relationships with many, many students and seek to know all of our students. And so we would always keep that kind of student to staff ratio.
Okay. There was a question, I know, that I believe this was one that was raised at the planning board hearing about students leaving the campus. And I believe the answer was escaping is low, but it implies that it's happened. Is that more likely with a higher number of students on the property, and any specific measures to prevent that kind of thing?
In the 3 years that I've been at Martin Luther School, I believe we had one student, and we call it eloping, who did elope onto Township Line Road. It was very early on, and we had our student advisors with him within the first 5 or 6 minutes of, and that was the first few minutes he was still on our property. I can't speak to the history of that, but I could ask, we have Principal Williams on, and he could probably speak to that a little bit better.
Sure.
Pertains to do I need to be sworn in again or anything?
No, you're currently sworn in, Mr. Williams. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So as it pertains to the history of elopement, I will say previously, I've been at Martin Luther School for 12 years. And I would say previously in former years, the elopement rate was kind of high. When Ava Morrison came aboard as the school director, she helped us to implement a program that was more rigorous and focusing on the social, emotional well-being of the students. So we now have put measures in place that really target students' needs. And that's the reason why most kids act out, because certain needs aren't being met. So I've watched elopements and restraints, because we're a school that also engages in restraints, subside from literally 100 to almost 25% within the first 2 years that she was there. Recently, we just came back after being absent for 16 months due to COVID. We just started our ESY program. We have had 0 children go off of grounds. I think that's remarkable for many children who have had high anxiety of returning in person and not knowing what to expect. But again, to Ava's credit, the staff that she has employed do a wonderful job at meeting those students' needs. So we thus reduce the amount of occurrences for elopements or restraints.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Principal, appreciate it.
Yes, no problem.
There was another question I know that the original charter mentions students, I think, with social maladjustment. I mean, is that, you know, is that sort of that's 50 years old? So I mean, is that a kind of diagnosis that has changed over time?
Yeah, I think in today's terminology, we would say those are students who need emotional support. And I think Principal Williams already mentioned they may have school anxiety, they may have trauma. And so I think the way that we look at it, we're very much a trauma-based school with a lot of social, emotional learning support. So I think times have changed.
Okay, thank you. A couple more. I understand that one of the notes in the planning board testimony, the question came up of students of high school students who obviously would be driving age, driving their own vehicles, and there didn't seem to be an answer to that. And I'm wondering if that might be something that you know is that you contemplate permitting.
So we have certainly not crossed that bridge yet of having students who are old enough to drive. And if we were to get there, we would do so with an abundance of caution. But that is a decision that I don't think we are able to weigh in on yet, only because we don't know our students who are seniors in high school right now. And so we take every measure with an abundance of caution. And so I wouldn't anticipate many students being able to drive in the first place. Some of them do come from fairly far away. But I think that's a decision we would have to take a little bit later down the line.
Would that be subject, Mr. Sander, to a further variance or?
Well, they're asking from this variance to allow students in grades 9 to 12 to matriculate at the school with a cap of 350. And I think if relief is granted on that application, they will be able to move forward. We know that this year there's only going to be 10 ninth graders, but if relief is granted, they can have up to a total K through 12 of 350 students. And there would be no limit or restriction on the number of elementary school students versus middle school students versus high school students. Conceivably, if this relief is granted as presented, they could have 350 12th graders. I don't think that's going to happen. What I'm hearing is that this is a long established educational institution that obviously already has K through 8. So I don't think they would do away with that. But that's what the zoning board has to keep in mind when it's thinking about potentially granting relief here. And that is, there are no restrictions stated on the number of students per grade that could matriculate.
Okay.
And Mr. Sanders, just if I could, this is a special exception. This doesn't require variance approval. So we're there.
Okay.
Understood. The requested relief is for 9 to 12.
Right.
Right.
I'm sorry if I used the incorrect terminology, but you're right on that. Have there been any incidents of real criminality in the past few years? I know we spoke about escaping. Yeah, but I remember this goes back some years. There was an issue with a kid who threatened someone down at Maple Acres Farm, I think, but that's going back some years. Has been anything similar?
Not that I'm aware of, but I can defer to Mr. Williams.
And so again, within the past 7 years that you're referring to, there's never been an instance of criminality where the police were called in reference to anything remotely close to what you just described.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Principal Williams, appreciate it. I see that there are some questions that have come in from the that are in the chat room, Mr. Sander and Mr. Chairman. How do we deal with those?
No, we cannot entertain those specifically. All the folks on the Zoom who wish to make public comment at the end of the testimony will be asked to do so in an orderly fashion. But the zoning hearing board cannot entertain questions from the public at this time.
Okay. Okay, that's, those are all the questions I have. Thank you. Thank you both, Principal Williams and Ms. Morrison. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. I'm sorry, I have to remember how to pronounce your last name, Allison. Miss
Riches.
Thank you, dear. I'm sorry. I have a couple of questions for whoever wants to answer them. First of all, we talked about criteria about how to get into the school. Can you provide some details on what your criterias are and what is your acceptance rate and your decline rate?
I'm going to ask Ms. Canavan. She is our Director of Admissions to address that question.
So typically the sending school districts send referral packets over, including an educational document called an IEP, an evaluation report or reevaluation report, along with their positive behavior support plans and any other documentation that would be helpful. So some of them have a psychoeducational summary. It varies depending on the sending school district. That is all reviewed. And then if on paper, it seems that that student would be a good fit for our program, we complete a tour and an intake process that is pretty lengthy. And then from there, we sit in front of an admissions team and review the student and, you know, what we have learned.
Okay, so what do you consider a good fit?
All of our students are required with our state licensor to have a eligibility criteria of emotional disturbance, either primary or secondary. So that is, we are required by our license to have that. In addition, depending on some of the students' needs and the requirements based on their IEP. So the support that we can offer them, whether that is intervention plans, maybe individual counseling. It varies student to student, and depending, in most cases, we are able to support the students. It's just whether or not behaviorally, emotionally, and academically, we feel like they would be a good fit for our program.
Okay. So everyone that gets, that applies to come to the school is in some form of IEP within the state, right? The
Yeah,
state
so all of
guidelines.
our students are special education students, so they are required to have an IEP.
And is this all Pennsylvania students or is it any state?
A large majority of our population is from the state of Pennsylvania. We do have about 5 students from the state of Delaware.
And so that's a pretty big universe of school districts that could be sending.
Dom, could you start that question again? You were cut off in the beginning.
That's a large amount of school districts that are sending referrals over?
We do. We have about, I would say about 50 school districts that send referrals over, sometimes more. That does not mean that we accept students from all of those districts.
Do you get any referrals from what I would say the school districts that are most local to your location?
We have referrals from Colonial School District. We have referrals from Methacton School District. We have referrals and students from Centennial School District. I can continue.
Okay. So what's the acceptance and the turn down rate? How many applications do you get? I guess you only get them at the beginning of the school year, or do you
No,
get
so
them?
we have a rolling admissions process. So we receive, not all of the referrals that we receive do we even schedule the intakes and tours, just based on the documentation. And then and based on the fit, so whether or not we have an opening in that grade number, or have the space and capacity for those students. Off the top of my head, I can't give a really great percentage for you, but I would say 75% of the students we accept. That does not mean they accept us. So that is also their legal right to choose a different placement because they are applying to multiple schools like you would for college.
Is the cost prohibitive to go to the school?
The districts are in charge of the funding. So it has nothing to do with the families. It's just based on whether or not they feel like it's a good fit for their students, if, you know, they want our program, or if there's something closer to home.
So if you get all your students that are enrolled, the school district that they came from provides the funding for your services.
We also have some state funding, but yes.
When you said you have some that are fits and some that are not fits, is that based on the expertise that you have on staff?
Yeah, so it's a matter of the students, sometimes the student population, our expertise of staff. All of our students are do have emotional support needs, so that does look differently from grade level to grade level.
Okay, and is it harder for the younger kids to adapt or harder for the older kids to adapt? Or I'm trying to get a feel for, you know, I could ask you, what's your enrollment in each grade, and how does it fluctuate? And does someone that goes to your school start in kindergarten, do they make it to 8th grade, or are they better in 3 years because you're so good at what you do and they go back to their school district? You know, these are the things that I'm trying to.
No, I understand. It's more rare to have referrals in our kindergarten grade. I say right now our largest grade is our 5th graders. Some of them will stay with us through 8th grade, some of them will not. There are some students that do not wish to return to their school districts based on the trauma that they had or the lack of support in those districts. So they do not, despite us making them and supporting them and getting them to where they need to be, they do not desire to return. So they might be great and making a lot of progress at our school, but that is where they would like to stay until they're able to go to a new high school.
So they don't want to return to their old school district.
There are some students that are able to, we've had students in the past that attend our ESY program and return right after our summer programming. That is rare, but we do have students that have been for us for about a year, maybe 2, and return back to the districts. That would vary grade level to grade level.
Okay. And I've been going through some of these approvals, and it looked like, I don't know where we get 350. I see 250 as the max. And then I see in 1988, you opened up a daycare. How does the daycare work? Is that emotional kids too, or is that just?
We currently do not have a daycare on campus.
Don't have a daycare on campus?
No.
Okay. So is that 1988 approval for permission to establish a daycare center on the lower level of a classroom building? No?
That is currently not in existence.
Okay, thank you. I can't tell from let's see. Ages 5 to 13, but you could go to age 17 currently, right? If they're left behind?
No, that would not occur. And again, there is our school will only serve students through 8th grade, and we would never retain a student beyond that in 8th grade. So this idea of students being left behind does not occur very frequently anymore.
Previous approval said 8th grade, but they could be in 8th grade for 5 years, or they could be 18 years old and in 8th grade. So that doesn't.
That would never be a practice of our school. And I think that sounds to me like an outdated notion, to be frank.
So I'm asking questions. I mean, I'm reading the paperwork, and that's what's in it. Do you have any autistic children?
We do not serve autistic students.
And you said you provide treatment. Is this medical treatment? Is it psychological treatment? Is it another form of treatment?
Yeah, so we provide counseling through our school counselors and social workers. We also have occupational therapists, physical therapists, and speech therapists.
Speech therapist, okay. And this is a little contradictory in some of the stuff I'm reading. What is the staff to student ratio?
It's currently about 1.5 staff to student.
So if you have 120 staff, you have less than that in children or enrollees?
No, for each student, we have about 200 students and 120 staff. So we have about not a 2-to-1, probably a 1.75 to 1 ratio or something like that.
Student to staff. See, when you first testified, I was going to ask you about this, and Mr. April just, it's 1 staff to 1.5 students.
That's right.
Less staff than students.
Yes, fewer staff
Okay,
than students.
okay, because you said staff to student ratio is 1.5 to 1.
I'm sorry, I
Staff to
think that's
student.
just, it's probably school talk, industry standard, we say staff to student ratio, and I apologize if that was misunderstood.
Okay. Okay, so 1.5 students to each 1 staff. Sorry, Mr. Brilli, to interrupt. Just wanted to clear that up.
Okay, in 1971, it was 1-to-1, and that's why I asked the question. That's pretty tight. Do some students need more help than others, and what form of help do you provide?
Yeah, so some of our students have what we call a personal care assistant, which is sometimes also called a one-on-one. So in addition to, we have approximately 10 to 12 students in a class, and we have a certified teacher and 2 teaching assistants. Some of those students additionally will have a PCA, and that's determined through their IEP.
Shadows, they used to be called?
That's another way of calling it. And I would also say, you asked Ms. Candivan earlier about the age groups and the younger children. We find that our older children are actually, as they grow, they're more cognitively mature, and they're much more reasonable. We find that our younger students, when they first arrive, are students probably who show more anxiety and need more support. And I think that is just like typical children. A typical 7-year-old is probably not as rational as a 12-year-old.
I agree with you. No adults, we know that. Is there special state guidelines for IEP students?
Yes, there are whole chapters of regulations for IEP students.
And can you elaborate on that, please?
So there is a process by which a student becomes a special education student, and that is established through Child Find. So Ms. Candivan alluded to the fact that in kindergarten, we see very few kindergartners, because typically all students who are entering kindergarten are first, observed through their kindergarten year. And so it's not very typical for a student to have that high level of emotional support need. That's evident in kindergarten. And in order to go through the legal process of determining whether the student should have special education support, which includes an evaluation by a school team, a school psychologist, recommendations, supports need to be put in place in district. It does take some time. So we do follow all of the regulations for IEP students, that up to and including following the letter of the IEP. So if there are services, for example, for speech or occupational or physical therapy, we provide that. Sometimes in the IEP, there will be specific minutes of counseling. So we make sure that the student sees the school counselor or a social worker. And then that student, the IEP team gathers on a yearly basis to evaluate the student's progress.
Now, during the IEP process, how often do you have meetings with the students and their parents?
Minimally once a year at the IEP table, as we call it. But then we also, 3 times a year, every trimester, we meet the student and the parents and the classroom team meet to discuss progress.
So by state law, you have to meet once a year.
That's right.
And your curriculum has it 3 times a quarter?
No, 3 times a year. So
3 times a year, I'm sorry.
yeah, we call it a trimester. So once a trimester, outside of the IEP process, we meet with the child, the family, the classroom teacher, and the support team to let them know how the student is progressing.
And is that usually well attended, that meeting?
It can be well intended, but I will say with COVID and our one-to-one laptop initiative, our families really do show up because they're much better able to. Particularly because they travel quite a distance sometimes, and now we can do it virtually. And that has really been a blessing of COVID.
So the laptop initiative is a virtual meeting?
Yes, that's right. All of our students have laptops. It's one-to-one.
Are the laptop meetings with parents effective?
Yeah, I think they are. I think our one of the things that has been very effective in being virtual, and even in our summer program, we continue to be virtual 1 day a week. It really helps us to have a very strong bond with the families, because the families see what we do, how we teach, how we provide services. And we've really been able to build relationships with all of our families.
How does the school perform on a grading level with other institutions within the state?
Most of our students are academically behind. Their trauma has interrupted their ability to learn. So one of the things that we work on very intensively is bringing our students back up to grade level reading and math. So we, take that very, very seriously.
So they score under the norm, the averages. But is the school rated, like your neighbor is Epiphany grade school and they were some blue ribbon school? I'm not really sure what that means. But and now that's a private school, right, or a Catholic school, as opposed to Colonial, which is public school district. Are you guys all graded on the same playing field there, or how's it different?
We don't have the same kind of rating. I will say this, we are moving towards accreditation. So we've begun steps to become accredited and hopefully accredited K-12. And so that's a process that where outside evaluators come in regularly and help us to meet goals. Your question about blue ribbon schools, a public or private school could apply to be a blue ribbon school. And I think my team and I are very ambitious and driven to provide the very best for students. I think it would be a far reach for us to apply to be a blue ribbon school with special education.
I wasn't suggesting that. I'm just trying to get a feel for how well you guys do. Like, what are the results? The student results in the school district?
Yeah, so I think our biggest result is being able to return students back to school districts where they can function successfully academically and also emotionally. But they do come to us, they are behind academically. We work very intensive, so they get intensive reading and math support every single day. In addition to a full social studies, science, program, art, music, PE, all of the typical things, but our students would not score academically as well as their regular ed counterparts in a school district.
You see many of the students, I guess you only go to 8 now, so you wouldn't know if they wind up going to college. But is that a small percent today?
We do have an alumni event where alumni come back and give advice to our 8th graders about transitioning to high school. Sometimes they're nervous about that. I am not aware of the number of students who do go on to college, but we recently had students who did go on to college come back and give advice to our 8th graders. And one of our hopes for our high school program is to provide both academic, collegiate, and vocational support for our students.
What's the average tenure that a child is at the school?
I'm going to defer to Ms. Canavan, but I'm not sure if we have record of that. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know that we would have record of that. I would say most students are with us for about 2 to 3 years, sometimes more, sometimes less.
That's probably ages grades 5 to 7 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
What's the criteria for people to be residents?
So that is a separate funding stream that is through managed care. So children that live on the residential property is funded through the managed care. So whether that's Magellan, community behavioral health or CCBH, it's a much larger criteria of funding through insurance and to be able to meet the criteria and the support that they need within a residential program.
So what kind of support do you provide for residents? Like, are they in hospital rooms?
We
Are they
don't,
in regular
don't-
apartment?
so we don't, so we're a school and we're a separate program from the residents. The students who are residential live in our residential treatment facility, which is a walk, a little sidewalk away from us. But we don't admit them there and we don't run that program. That program is run separately and there's a director of residential that admits students, and they have a totally different process. Once those students are admitted and they do reside, obviously, residential treatment facility, some of those students who fit our criteria apply for admissions to the school. We take them through exactly the same admissions process as we do any student coming from district. Because they live in Plymouth Township, Colonial becomes their school district and might refer students. There are students from the residential treatment facility who attend Colonial schools. There are some students in the residential treatment facility who may have autism. We don't serve students who have autism. There may be some students who have an intellectual disability. We don't serve students who have an intellectual disability because we don't believe that we have programming set up for students, so they will go to a different school. Also a special education school, but a special education school that's designed to meet their needs.
And Ava, just to reiterate, no one from 9th through 12th are going to be admitted to the residential treatment facility. That's a completely separate, that has nothing to do with this application at all. It's completely separate.
Yeah, so the residential treatment program is only for students through age 13.
Correct. Right.
But you guys were all the same. I didn't know it was two different. Is it two different legal entities?
We all
just two
are,
different
we all are
programs?
part of Gemma Services. Gemma Services has a number of programs, outpatient services for children that are not in Plymouth Township, that are on a different location. We have a foster care program. So one of the programs is the school. Another program is the residential treatment facility.
So you really can't answer any questions about the residential treatment facility?
No. Other than I would say, sometimes students from the residential treatment facility may elope, but that's separate from students who attend the school.
Right. Well, you caught me off cue because when you said you give kids treatment, I thought that was medical treatment, but you're talking about psychological treatment or learning treatment, math. It sounds like you specialize in math and English, math and reading.
We certainly do a lot with reading and with mathematics and all of the academic subjects. We provide services, which I think probably is how we would describe that in today's terms. We provide counseling services through school counselors and social workers. We have occupational therapists, we have physical therapists, we have speech therapists. We don't have psychiatrists, we don't have doctors. We're not a hospital, we're a school. We do have a school nurse. We have 2 school nurses, actually.
And is everyone on staff, do they have the proper certifications under the state requirements? I would assume so, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a requirement for licensure and we apply for licensure every year. And in addition to that, we're moving towards accreditation, which is the next level of approval that we're seeking voluntarily.
So if you get the accreditation approval, what does that permit you to do?
Well, for one thing, once you're accredited, you no longer have to do a yearly licensure because Pennsylvania Department of Education recognizes you've gone above and beyond and that you're now on a self-improvement plan through accreditation to make sure that you have a continuous growth process. And so you've heard of Middle States as one accrediting body. There are 3 bodies in Pennsylvania that are approved to accredit K-12 institutions. And that includes, you've heard of college accreditation through Middle States. Accreditation is that type of program.
guess the only other question, and I might have to defer to Mr. Sanders. We're asking to go up to 12th grade, and the approvals that I see here are combined with the residential and the educational, I call it. So do we have to bifurcate that? Dave Sanders, is that something we have to?
No.
Like,
No, we don't have to bifurcate it. This application only applies to the school. And they're only asking for relief from the school. They're not asking to have K through 12 or to add 9 through 12 to be able to live in the residential treatment facility. They're only asking to add 9 to 12 to the school. And that's all the zoning hearing board can consider under this application.
Okay, but in a prior approval, 1971, and I know it's 50 years ago, but it says 72 children will be living on site, and the enrollment in 15 to 20 years would be between 200 and 250.
Right.
And I haven't heard that number. I just hear 350, and we don't know how many people live there. How about, what is the capacity of the property? Who knows the capacity for the residential side and the educational side, the legal capacity? Does anyone know?
We know the answer to that.
We don't know the answer to that, right?
Well, I think if we needed, obviously, if the school grows, right, it would have to expand, but that's not what we're looking to do here. If we go past.
When the fire inspectors come in, don't they put a placard on the wall and says so many occupants?
Well, obviously, we would be compliant with anything the township came in so we had to abide by. That's not an issue, but we're not aware that going up to 350 in the current location with the current buildings that are established will be an issue with capacity for the township or for any other governing body.
How many buildings are over there? I mean, it's a beautiful property, and I never knew it was, you know, a school for, you know, kids that had hard beginnings. How many buildings are over there?
I guess I can answer that one. By the way, we have 72 beds of residential treatment. That's our capacity, 72.
Okay.
But there's only 58 here now. That goes up and down. So the buildings, we have 7 buildings on the property. 3 of them are schools. The rest are offices or residents.
There's 3 school buildings, and are they three stories up?
No. Well, our Harrison Center building is 33,000 square feet, and that is 2 floors. There's a lower level and then an upper level. Our Hess building is a single floor building. That's 23,000 square feet. And then Fritz Wing is 6,000 square feet. That's where the school occupies. They're the buildings the school occupies.
And the school total count today is how many children? How many enrollees? I know we said it once or twice already, but I'm just making some notes here, that's all.
We currently have about 180 students.
Let me follow up, Mr. Prilli, on your question about the 250 and the 350. The 250 was mentioned back in 1991. But the testimony tonight was that they're allowed to have up to 350 students. Where did the increase from 250 to 350 come, and in what form was that permission granted?
Well, Mr. Sander, the condition on the 1971 approval allows us up to 350. That's where we're getting 350 from.
Okay, well,
we don't have 350.
Then let's get to the bottom of what Mr. Prilli is reading and what the order actually says.
Okay.
Let me just take a look here.
So number 3 in the order
Right.
talks about the maximum number of students.
Maximum number of residential student residential students
Right.
permitted to the subject track shall be 250. So 250 kids could live there.
At the residential treatment facility, right?
Right. And the total enrollment at any one time of residential and day students shall be 350. So I think Mr. Aprilli's looking to get the breakdown of.
Well, and they just gave it, but that, I didn't see that before. And that just,
okay.
That's where I was coming up with, do we need to bifurcate here? I thought it was combined with residential.
No, they're just asking to allow 9 to 12 for the school only, nothing to do with the residential treatment facility.
So if there's 72 beds, the most they can have in enrollment in the school is 350 minus 72. Is that correct? Does everybody agree to that?
No, they can have up to 350 combined day students and residents.
So if you went down to 0 residents, you could have 350 students, right?
Correct.
But then you would limit your residents. And how often is that reporting done to the state or the township?
I know the answer to that. Neil, do you know the answer to that? I don't think we have been close.
Repeat your question again. How
often do you report your enrollment of residents and student day student enrollments and resident enrollments, whether they be students or just residents? How often do you report that to the agencies?
Well, we're inspected repeatedly, probably 3 months out of the year. There's inspectors here, and we're only licensed in Pennsylvania for 72 beds, residential treatment beds. So that's reported daily. Actually, we have a batch report that comes out and how many kids are here and where they're from. So that's a constant.
So if somebody wanted to do a spot check mid-year, that information's available somewhere.
Sure. Yeah.
Just asking questions. I don't. You say 72. This says 350. You can have
250. So we could really, so 250 beds we could have in
250,
RTF, but I think Mr. Clark would testify that that's very, very unlikely they would ever have 250 beds at that.
The state only allows them for 72 right now, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
They
So
would have to go in and get additional approvals. And that would probably change your spacing at the school.
Mhm.
I don't know. You got that much room in the other buildings?
Not really. This program was started up here in 72. They moved up from Germantown, and they started in 1859 as an orphanage. So when they moved up here from Germantown, they lived in some of the outlying homes. There wasn't a residential program, there wasn't anything really here. So most of the children went to public school here. So then they were having trouble at public school, so they built a small school, and that's that one I said there was 6,000 square feet. So they went to school there, but a lot of the kids, and they were older, by the way, then they were older kids. They were kids, a lot of public school kids, a lot of colonial school kids. And then we realized that wasn't our niche. Our niche is really the younger kids in residential treatment. So that's why we went that way. And that's been that way, since the 70s. There's been 72 licensed beds. It's never changed, never has gone up or down. It's specifically about residential. I mean, I'm pretty certain there's no interest in that.
And the forecast for the high school students, year one is 10 eighth graders, 10 ninth graders? Or is that or you have rolling enrollment, right?
We do have a rolling enrollment.
So are you capping your year one ninth graders? Or it could be, do you have the expertise to teach 10, 11, and 12 graders today?
We certainly have with certified staff to do that. But again, we are starting small because we want it to be good. And so I don't anticipate, could we have 12 students? It's possible. It is possible that a district would say, we have a really good match for you. We'd have to consider it. we will consider it more carefully. There's a separate high school application where we also do interview the applicant to make sure that they are interested in coming to our program. In this case, our applicant pool was exclusively from our 8th grade, but we don't want to have a large 9th grade class. We want to start small. We want to make sure that we're building the program the right way to support the kids. We also take the fact that we are, through the state of Pennsylvania, diploma granting very seriously. A high school diploma coming from us needs to mean something. And so we wouldn't want to have a large 9th grade class.
I asked a pretty good amount of questions, try to get a feel for how you operate. Sounds like you got a tight ship there. Mr. Sanders?
I wanted to go back. Ms. Fritsch has asked Ms. Morrison about security measures, and she lapsed quickly into the student-staff ratio, and I never heard about the security measures that are in place. Could you be more specific about those?
Yes, we currently have 7 student advisors. They were
7 student advisors?
They were formerly called climate officers, but we found that student advisor is a much friendlier name because that's really what they do. And frankly, that's what climate officers, you've heard of school climate officers.
I have not.
Oh, that's not an uncommon public school position where you have a climate officer who is there for the safety and well-being of students. And their primary job is to build relationships with students and to help them by providing coping skills and talking to them, helping them reason through problems. And so we currently have 6 student advisors, formerly called climate officers, and we've just added staffing for a 7th.
Okay, so that's part of your program, obviously. But when I hear security measures, I think of video surveillance cameras. I think of doors that lock or don't lock. I think of guards and security personnel. Could you go into some of that?
I could talk about that.
Unless there is none of that.
No, there is.
Okay.
We have 2 full-time security officers. I think we refer to them as school resource officers, and they're hired. They're contracted folks. They're U.S. security care over in Bluebell, and they've been with us probably 5 years. There's one that roams the property, and the other one does the entrance door to Hess Center. And they're strictly to maintain order during the day. They are hands off. They have nothing to do with children other than to protect staff and kids here should something from the outside come in. That's when they were hired a handful of years ago, and that's what we use them for.
Surveillance cameras.
We have an enormous amount of cameras on the property, both interior and exterior. And we have ID access on all the doors. You can't get in or out unless you work here. And you can't get in and out unless you work in that building. So they've been up and going probably for 5 years.
I think additionally, our students always transition with a staff member. So our students don't walk from classroom to classroom. They don't walk between buildings unless there's staff with them and or in the hallway. Whenever they're outside, we have multiple staff. So I think you would count that as part of the security measure as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Shannon, I was just going to ask Mr. Williams at the planning agency meeting, I thought it was helpful for him to describe getting on and off the bus from point A to point B and point B to point C. So Principal Williams, you want to just briefly describe that? Ava went into a little bit, but.
Yes, yeah, no problem. So what typically happens is students' transportation vehicles arrive on campus roughly around 8:15, 8:20 in the morning. At about 8:25, we have staff members at every location come out to greet students at the bus. And we also have staff members at the top of the property to ensure that no one goes off grounds during arrival time and dismissal time as well. What happens is when a student gets off the bus, we radio down on walkie saying certain amount of students are coming down. to the next point, there are staff members located at the next point who will then transition them to the next point where there are staff located along every pathway until the student is actually in the physical building. Once in the actual physical building, there are also staff members placed at various locations for morning duties to ensure that every student goes straight into their classroom.
Any idea how, there have been elopements in the past? I know you said they've been greatly reduced, and again, we're talking about the school here.
Yes.
We're not talking about what may be elopements from the residential treatment facility, but how have they happened with these measures in place?
So once again, Ava talked about an increase in our student advisors. Our student advisors routinely are in every corridor and hallway. So therefore, when a student instantly comes out of his or her classroom, they're greeted by one of those student advisors. We also increased the amount of teaching assistants that we have in classrooms. We used to have 2 staff members in every classroom, a teacher and a teacher's assistant. We currently have 1 teacher and now 2 teachers' assistants in every classroom. So at any turn, when a student comes out into the hallway for any reason, like I said, they're greeted by that student advisor, asking them what is the purpose of being in the hallway. So I guess the opportunity for elopement was greatly reduced just by the institution of the student advisors themselves, even before we moved to the 3rd classroom staff member.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
I think the board hears that there's only going to be 10 9th graders, no 10th graders, no 11th graders, no 12th graders, 10 students to bring you up to 190, I think, or does that bring you up to 180? I'm not sure.
Up to 190.
190, okay. But the permission you're seeking tonight is to allow 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders up to 350 combined students between day students and those who live at the residential treatment center. And you're starting slowly, and it seems innocuous. It seems that the addition of 10 9th graders is not going to have a greater impact. But can somebody address the change that will occur at the school once you're allowing 9 through 12 and up to 350 students at the school down the line? That's where you can go ultimately, and I assume where you want to go eventually. You may never get there, but you could get there. How will this school, this campus, this environment change from what it is now?
Let's answer that. Ava, answer that. Neil?
From my educational perspective, we hope to have a robust program that involves academics, athletics, activities, as you would see in a typical high school, for approximately 30 students per grade level. And again, we're going to build it. It is our hope to build it year by year.
I'd just like to add to Ms. Morrison's comment is that as we continue to look in the future, according to your question, Dave, some of the, I guess, challenges that I can foresee would be going to that staggered arrival bus schedule like Ava talked about for our potential high school students. Because as we introduce 10th, 11th, and 12th grader, again, that's probably roughly 90 more students if she keeps up with the number of potentially 30 per grade. So that's an influx of buses that would have to come on grounds. So what we would probably have to do then is stagger a high school arrival. That's the only potential pitfall I can see currently looking down the line at this time.
Well, not a pitfall, but I mean, I assume you would also need to increase staff. You would need to increase number of student advisors. 7, probably not going to cut it anymore. And with the older kids, the older the kids are, the more ways of the world they know, and high school kids can do and are capable of doing things that elementary school, little kids just don't do or can't do. It will be a different environment there with these older students, and I'm just looking for some input on how you plan to evolve into that structure.
Well, again, I think Ava kind of touched on this earlier when she talked about, particularly when you start to deal with older students, at least in our population, what we can attest to, they become more mature, and particularly when they show up to school, that's because they want to be there. It's the younger students who are more anxious, more impulsive at times. The older students you can tend to rationalize with and have conversations with, and in most cases you can successfully de-escalate. It's those younger students that could be potentially be the challenges that I can foresee down the line.
Good point, Principal Williams. And I wanted to ask you, the kids want to be there, you said, and I've heard reference in the testimony to the fact that folks seek you out. They want to come to you. But is that the parents who are desperate to get their kids emotional support, or is that the kids themselves? Are you faced with kids coming there who they don't want to be there, but their parents do, and the school district recommended it, so they're there, but they really don't want to be there, they just have no choice?
I will say that over my time here, I've experienced a wide range of different emotions for any student that showed up to our school. But primarily, most students don't come to us because their parent wants them to go there. Ava talked about the IEP process and them being recommended to us by school districts. So I'm not going to say that sometimes every student is pleasantly welcomed or happy to be at Martin Luther School, but that's where that relationship building comes in. That's where we form those trusting relationships to let them know that we're there to support them and try to educate them, so both socially, behaviorally, and academically. And that dynamic begins to shift and change. If I could just say to you, quite honestly, that every student that comes to us loves to be there, I'd be sitting here telling a bold-faced lie. But I will continue to say that we do our best to approach kids where they are when they do show up at our doorstep. And Ms. Siobhan talked about this earlier. When we go through our admissions process, as we carefully look over that paperwork, as we carefully dissect everything, there are some kids we just quite frankly say, you know what? Nah, I don't think we're going to be able to meet this kid here based upon what we see the potential needs may be.
Mr. Sender, can I just add something? I mean, I would argue that how is it any different than I understand that the Martin Luther School have an IEP to get in, but there are plenty of public high school students who do not want to come to school. The parents have to get them out of bed, go to school, have behavioral issues in school, have counselors in school. So I think, it's part of a closing argument, so to speak. What you've heard here today is this group, this team, is a professional team who is making it work very well, to the extent that you have the state saying, let's expand your license so you can offer more services to these children and potentially, have them graduate college. So I think what we're asking you tonight is to have some faith in the professional staff at that school, to treat them as any other high school, acknowledging that, we need to have that some of these students may have behavioral issues. We have a condition from the township. We have to increase the quote, security proportional to the amount of students that we have on campus. And, let us show the township, show the residents that this is a good thing. This is something that we're going to continue to do well with just high school students.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Conroy a question. In this case, there has been a determination by Mr. Conroy regarding the number or regarding the grade levels. Part of the application says is an appeal from the determination of the zoning officer that no one above the grade 8 can attend the school. In the application, they say there's no condition of any prior decision that limits or refers to age or grade level. And in fact, the decision refers to children remaining at the school up to 18 years of age. What is the zoning officer's position on that?
Pretty much that, I mean, you could, basically what Dom said earlier, you could have an 8th grader or essentially you could have like a 23-year-old senior in high school. There's always that case. So that was pretty much in a nutshell, like my determination, if you know where I'm going with that.
So the age limitation is 18, correct?
I don't believe there's an age limitation, but I'll defer to Ava about what their typical, what ages they see and when they transition back.
I would say there's a small variation in the age of any grade level. Sometimes parents hold students back. So if you hold your student back, you would actually be 19 in 12th grade. That does occur more regularly, I think, with recent practice of not sending children to kindergarten until they're 6, or if they're closer to 6 when they enter kindergarten. But the idea that we would hold a student until age 23, I don't think I know of any high school that has 23-year-olds. I think students typically, if they are not graduating by the time they've
I
completed.
thought high school, like autistic kids have to graduate at age 21.
So
right?
those are
what I understand.
students, those are students who have an IEP for life skills. And those tend to be students who are intellectually disabled. Those are not our students. Our students aren't autistic or intellectually disabled.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to get a grasp on what the prior decision actually allows. Obviously, you couldn't have 9 through 12 because your licensure didn't allow it. Now it does. And I think part of the application is saying, well, we think we can bring in anyone we want up to 350 students because there's no grade level. Is that what I'm understanding the argument to be?
That is the argument. It says up to 315, doesn't talk about, a grade level, correct?
So the current approval in place though is grades K to 8 and age 18. They're the cutoffs. Does everybody agree to that? That's what's in writing.
Well,
Or is
that's
there something
their
different?
licensure, Dom. That's what their license says.
But I'm looking at the township approval, the zoning.
Okay, which one?
1971.
Okay.
I mean, is there an amendment to that?
So I think, Mr. Chairman, what you're looking at, and obviously you've asked for everything the alternative here because we want to make this work, but our position would be those are findings, those aren't conditions. And just from the strict legal perspective, there's nothing in this decision, unless I'm missing it, Mr. Sander, that says, the decision is in conformance with all the testimony. So when I looked at this decision, I saw all of those things in findings of fact, but in the conditions of approval, that didn't carry over into the condition of approval. The only thing that carried over was that we're allowing up to 350 students total and 250 in the residential treatment. So that's what we based our application on, were
So
the
you
conditions of
don't
approval.
believe that you're restricted to K to 8 either. Is that correct?
So that's our first argument, right? And the zoning officer disagreed with that. So we asked for an amendment to the orders and the alternative, a special exception.
It's an abundance of caution to have an interpretation by the zoning hearing board of those findings of facts.
Okay, so the argument is there were findings made, there was testimony to certain things, but because they weren't placed into the order itself, that they may not be enforceable or necessarily apply. That's the applicant's position. Mr. Conroy is saying, well, there were findings made, there was testimony on that, and he's going to err on the side of caution and say you can't go beyond 18 and have 9 through 12. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
Ask you a question. Is your enrollment limited to socially and emotionally maladjusted children? Or is there anyone else that could be in that population of enrollment?
Our enrollment is students who are identified through the IEP process as having an emotional disturbance.
So according to, is this an approval? I think this is an approval, right? Order, this is an approval. There shall be no enrollment of either delinquent, criminal, or mentally ill children, okay? And what you just said, IEP, could there be a crossover?
Can you clarify that crossover?
Well, it says that according to the order, you're limited to socially and emotionally maladjusted children, okay? And then it says, and shall be no enrollment of either delinquent, criminal, or mentally ill children, okay? So that's a fine line there. And when we ask you the question, you say, well, they have to have an IEP. So an IEP is not defined in that paragraph. So I asked, is there a crossover between delinquent, criminal, and mentally ill children with emotionally and maladjusted children?
So a school and a school district never makes a diagnosis regarding whether or not a student has a mental disease. So we don't do that. We don't identify that. That would be through a psychiatrist, and that's only through a medical determination, not a school determination. In terms of, could there ever be a crossover between students? And I think the old-fashioned term is socially and emotionally maladjusted. Could there ever be a crossover between a student who is socially and emotionally maladjusted and also is a juvenile delinquent? Absolutely. But we don't take students who are adjudicated, which is what would be today's term for juvenile delinquent.
So if they get referred to you, they're the ones you pass on.
Correct. If there's a student.
They don't fit. They're not a good fit. Somebody used that word, good fit.
Yes.
Okay. I know we're trying to be soft here on words. I understand that. But I think when I find out that the 18, whatever it is, age up to 18 is not in the order, like who knows what you could, and you want to put in 120 high schoolers, that's and you only have 180 in there now. So you're going from 15 kids a class to 30 kids a class, and you're not even sure you want to do high schoolers because your niche is 5th grade. It's just a little bit of contradictory there on your business plan.
Yeah, no, we do know that we would like to have a high school, and we do know we have approximately 10 students per class. 5th grade is often a grade level that we have to close our enrollment because we have so many students who make application and we don't always have room for them. I think we currently have 5 or 6 5th grade classrooms. High school model is a little bit different. You don't have self-contained classrooms at the high school level. Students do take classes by subject area, but we wouldn't have more than approximately 10 students in a math class or in an English class or in a social studies class.
Okay. But when you go to high school, you get all of those, right?
Yes, you do. You do an elementary school as well, but for high school, you have to start talking about electives. So we do have art and music. We have technology education.
You got to give them a curriculum. You got to give them a full learning curriculum.
Yeah.
Does the school have any problem with limiting its enrollment in the new grades?
No, we will have to.
For the time being, until it's proven to be successful.
So we're self-limiting in the sense that we want to make sure that we have a good program. So we don't want our program to grow quickly. And we always weigh, when we do admissions, we always look at how many spots, we determine how many spots we have. And then that's how we would fill those classrooms. And so there are sometimes, for example, we have more 5th grade classrooms. We probably have one more 5th grade classroom, but we don't like having an imbalance. We tend to like having for second grade classrooms, for third grade classrooms, it makes for a very nice transition from year to year as well.
Okay, let me put a stop to things for a second, because we need to discuss the fact it's now 10:43. There's at least one zoning hearing board member who is going to have to jump off very, very soon. Our court reporter's been through a lot tonight. I don't see that within the next few minutes we're going to be able to get through completion of the board questions and also finish public comment. So I'm thinking maybe we ought to bring it to a halt this evening and continue the matter to the board's next regular meeting to pick up with board questions and public comment at that time. Mr. Chairman?
Stop. I didn't even look at that time. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Most meetings are 10 o'clock hard stops.
Yeah, we're significantly past that.
I mean, I think that's what we have to do, because I think we got some comments on the you know, the outsiders or
Yeah, well, everybody on here is entitled to public comment, and there's just not enough time tonight to A, have all the zoning hearing board members remain present, and B, to have our court reporter continue to get an accurate record of the proceedings. So I'm going to look up the date of the next meeting, which
Dave,
looks
who's
like
in the pipeline, Dave, for agenda next time?
It's going to be August 16th. That's the meeting.
Yep.
And it's gonna be in person.
Yeah.
It's gonna be in the township auditorium.
Yeah.
Mr. Sander, would you consider a special meeting prior? I mean, I'm on vacation that week. I can see I'd like to be present. Plus, we're trying to get this through for September. Is it possible we could do a special meeting? And not just for my presence, but I mean, I know we're looking to kind of get things moving if this is approved from the school side.
we already have a special meeting on August 3rd. The 16th is the regular meeting night.
We could try the 23rd.
23rd.
Is that too late for their September enrollment?
Yeah.
Clear. Well, I'm not quite sure what else we can do.
Can we do the 3rd, or is that out of the question?
No, the 3rd's going to be, that's designated for a certain application that is going on and on and on.
I'm just looking. We could try.
I can't do the 9th.
Can't, yeah.
Tuesday, the 17th. Is that? Does Tuesday, the 17th work? Or are you on vacation, Allison?
I'm on vacation that week. I mean, I can figure it out if I have to. If it's gonna be in person though, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we do it the week prior, any night?
Can't do it the 9th.
I am also on vacation the week prior.
Work prior, okay. We
Yeah.
definitely need you here, Eva. Okay.
We're looking at
I
the
hate to say this
first.
because I've been in the same situation, but maybe somebody else from your office.
Yeah, that's fine. Do it the 16th, we'll make it work.
All right. I hear, again, I know we've both been there before. Okay, in that eventuality, do I have a motion to continue this hearing on the record until Monday, August 16th, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. at the Plymouth Township building in person? Is there a motion?
Just to clarify, Dave, there's no advertising needed for this?
Correct. If we
No
continue it on the
mailings.
record to a date certain, time certain, and location certain, we do not have to re-advertise. And
Correct.
everybody's going to have to participate. You know, if folks aren't here, they're going to have to make sure that they're here at that time, or word of mouth with folks who aren't here tonight.
Dave, do we run into a problem because it's non-Zoom? Now it's in
No.
person?
No, we have to go back in person.
No,
That's
I'm
the-
not
that's-
saying we don't have to go back in person, but the people on the phone today,
Yeah,
they're the only ones that are going to know it's in person if they're listening.
that's correct. Well, if we were in person, only the people who were there would know it because we're continuing it on the record. It's the same thing. We still have 46 people on the Zoom here. And this is the best we can do when we're transitioning from Zoom to in-person. We're going to continue it on the record to a date, time, and place certain. And that's what the law requires. So I would ask for the motion to be made if we can get that done.
I'll make
I'll
the
make the-
motion. Oh, go ahead, Dom. You please.
Brian,
No,
I'll
you,
second your motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. We don't need a roll call vote. We'll just say all in favor signify by saying aye.
okay. Do we vote now or do we? do
Yes,
we-
vote
get the-
now, please.
Okay, aye.
Ms. Lennox?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Aprile? We'll do a roll call anyway. I think we have a 4-0 vote to continue it till August 16th at 7 PM at the Plymouth Township Building. And we'll see everybody then.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Night,
From
everybody.
Martin Luther School. Thank you very much.